My dad, Marvin Palanker, fought on the front lines in World War II. He was an infantry anti-aircraft gunner in the Normandy invasion, the push across Europe, and the Battle of the Bulge. Between the ages of 18 and 20, he and his buddies pulled their giant gun from the coast of France to Belgium to Germany, digging ditches to sleep in while taking on constant enemy fire. They endured tremendous fear and danger to provide us with peace and safety. My dad was also able to document his experiences with a journal and his baby Brownie camera. My father didn't want us to read the journal until we were older, but time passed and I moved away, and he had tucked it away, and then he passed away. One Thanksgiving, I managed to find it. His words are crisp and sculpted and horrifying, and I wanted to share them, but I felt that I didn't know enough about World War II history to do his work justice, and so I decided to write a middle grade semi-autobiographical novel in which I imagine that an 11-year-old named Lanie secretly finds and reads her father's war journal. The book is called Journals, Middle School Love and War, and I'd like to begin reading it for you now.
Chapter 1, Battlefield Middle School, Monday, January 5th, 1970. Dear Journal, you were a gift from my dad, and I think he would be hurt if I didn't write in you, so here I go. Today stunk or stank or whatever the past tense of stink is, although maybe I should just use the future tense because tomorrow will probably stink too. Why? Because of the public nudity enforced upon middle school children in gym locker rooms. That's why. While I was quietly and quickly getting changed for gym today, the lovely and obnoxious Gretchen Alder accosted me. Gretchen is Mill Middle School's very own self-appointed queen bee. She comes complete with 2 worker bees, Martha Castle and Cindy Finderbean, who have gladly accepted the honor of doing her bidding, and lucky me, all 3 bees are in my gym class. Back to my story. Today, Queen Gretchen walks right up to me. While I am undressing, she flat out stares at my chest area and she goes, "Oh my God, you really need a bra." I think people in other schools heard her. Congratulations, Queen Gretchen, you have found an all-new and highly humiliating method of teasing me. My breasts aren't that big yet, are they? I was hoping I could wait until I'm 13 or maybe 30 to wear a bra. I'm not in any hurry to grow up. Martha calls me immature because I still wear an undershirt. She and Gretchen got bras before they even had anything to put in them, as if getting a bra is such a grand achievement or something. Here's your bra. It comes with this trophy. To me, it's like going into prison for the rest of my life. I don't even understand why we have to develop our figure. I mean, female dogs don't get breasts until they have puppies. Why do human grown-up ladies have to carry them around all the time? I guess I should introduce myself to you, Journal. My name is Lanie Spurdle. Hello, nice to meet you. Lanie is a nickname for Elaine. My middle name is Gail. Let's see, what other important facts should I put here right up front? Well, I'm in 7th grade. I live in Williamsville, New York, near Buffalo. I am a simple girl with simple goals. Today, my dream is to make it successfully through gym class without getting picked on. After school, Lois and I are going over to the Georgetown Plaza to get the new edition of Tiger Beat. Lois is my best friend and technically my 3rd cousin. Our grandmothers are first cousins, and that's what makes us 3rd cousins according to our mothers, who are 2nd cousins. See how that works? 7th graders are old enough to walk to the plaza after school, as long as there's not a blizzard. This is Western New York, or the Niagara Frontier, as the weatherman likes to call it, which makes it sound pretty rugged, and in many ways it is. For instance, if you enjoy your weather several notches below frigid, this is the town for you. However, if you're more like me and you prefer to feel your toes, you're growing up and moving to California. That's my plan. In the meantime, 7th grade. One fun thing about Williamsville, New York is our lovely plazas, which feature a fine selection of department, grocery, gift, discount, and drugstores. Lois and I love to walk over to the Georgetown Plaza near our school because it's just the best. They have a Grant's department store with tons of discount record bins, and the Woolworths has a really neat candy counter where I always order a bag of malted milk balls. Then we go to the tech pharmacy to get our teen mags. We gotta have our teen mags, but the best part about going to the plaza with Lois is just wandering in and out of all the stores together and laughing at everything until it gets dark. But first, the locker room. I don't mind the gym part of gym class. I'm okay at sports. I mean, I'm much better at sports than I am at math or arithmetic, and I'm even worse at spelling. In fact, one time I had the word arithmetic as a spelling word, and I got it wrong. I even had to look it up to spell it just now. So, yes, I do love sports, although school gym is not nearly as much fun as when we play football on my street. First of all, girls never get to play football in school gym, and second, our teacher, Mrs. Mason, can yell even louder than she blows her whistle. But I usually get an A on my report card in gym, and I think it's because I'm a good team player. I never laugh out loud when someone strikes out in kickball, even though I find it pretty sad/funny that a person could actually strike out in kickball. But let's move back to the locker room and the three Bs. All they care about is clothes and boys and makeup and boys and parties and boys and cheerleading and boys and oh, did I mention boys? They are three silly, chirpy, chattery chicks, and they act like they are the only ones in school who know what to wear and when to wear it, what to say and when to say it, and who should be talking to whom, and when they should be talking to that person, and when they should not be, etc., etc. Okay, secretly, I am afraid of them. They can make you feel like a tiny bug on a rock with one withering look. And please don't think I want to be a part of their group. I most certainly do not. A lot of the things they talk about, like makeup and boys and dating and kissing, are either uninteresting or completely terrifying to me. No, I'm really not jealous. I just want them to leave me alone. Okay, let's move on to my looks and my personality. People might tell you that I am a cute, funny, spunky tomboy, but it's my personal opinion that I am too tall and too plump with dirty blonde hair that's too thick, and yes, kids my age are probably too hard on themselves. Oh, I almost forgot. Today is my dad's birthday. I made him a card where I drew a cartoon of him reading a book with a caption that reads, "Reading, good and good for you. Builds minds 12 ways. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend reading books over eating them." And to go along with that, I bought him a book about World War II. He likes to read about the war because he fought in it. My dad fought in the Normandy invasion and the Battle of the Bulge. He fought in battles all the way across Europe, and he was only 18 years old. I always ask him to tell me stories about the war, and sometimes he does. Other times, he won't talk about it. He says, maybe later. If my dad had died in this war, I wouldn't be here. I think about that sometimes. There must be a lot of almost people who aren't here because their fathers died in a war. Before bed, I went to say goodnight to my father. He was reading the book I gave him. Chapter 2, The Family. Tuesday, January 6, 1970. Yay me! Today, I made it through gym class without incident. It's snowing, but just a little, so after surviving school, Lois and I skipped the bus and walked to the plaza. And then we walked home. It's just a little bit over a mile, and I usually sing my own special interpretations of the top 40 hit songs, which always gets Lois singing, so it's pretty funny. We want to start a band and call it Screwy and the Bolts. We made up that name because we both love the Bolt brothers on Here Come the Brides, which is our favorite TV show. It's about loggers in Washington State who are so lonely they send away for brides. I don't think I would sail around the continent to marry a lumberjack, but Jeremy Bolt is played by the very gorgeous Bobby Sherman, who my sister Annie plans to grow up and marry. If he waits for her, maybe she will. Yesterday my mother called him her son-in-law. That made me laugh out loud, so there may be hope for my mother. More about that to come. Lois is pretty, with dark hair and rosy cheeks. She lives on Fleetwood Terrace, the street behind mine, which is Tristan Lane. A rule in my house is that you have to be home by 6 p.m. or by dark, whichever comes first. If you're not home by then, you're in trouble. I have no idea why it's so important to my mother that I be home by dinner. It's not like we sit around the table and discuss our day. Sometimes I try to talk to my mother, Louise Palanker, and she pretends to listen, and she'll nod and say, which is my first clue that she's not listening. My second clue is that I'll say something funny, or at least I hope it's funny, and she'll do her fake laugh, which is, haha, with a blank stare. I would prefer no laugh at all to the fake laugh. I get plenty of authentic laughs from my little brother, Kurt, who thinks everything I say is hilarious. He is pretty goofy for a little brother, but I get him. On the other hand, I do not get my older sister Annie. She is mostly silent around me. I know that she is beautiful and popular and smart, and I know that she is in love with Bobby Sherman. The rest of her is still a mystery. My dad, Marvin Spurdle, works late on Mondays and Thursdays, and he works all day on Saturdays. He has a store that sells ladies' coats, so very often, dinner is just me, my sister, my brother, my mother, and my mother's bad mood. The bad mood is what makes it feel so crowded. When dinner is over, we kids clear the table and do the dishes, and my mom goes into her room and shuts the door because she has a headache. If we are too loud, she comes out and yells at us. If we don't clean up the kitchen right, we get yelled at. If she finds dirty clothes in our rooms, we get yelled at. If we don't get ourselves clean enough in the shower, we get yelled at. At this house, you really never know when you're going to get yelled at. When Dad comes home, he's quiet and angry because if Mom is in a bad mood, he figures it's our fault. It probably is our fault. I don't even know what to think. This is my family, and this is the house I live in. Chapter 3, The Drumsticks. Later in the day. What the heck just happened? My mother burst into my room and stole my drumsticks. My drumsticks! She took them right out of my hands, and I wasn't even doing anything. I was just sitting on my dresser, listening to Herman's Hermits, my second favorite group, and drumming quietly on my empty shoebox. All of a sudden, my mom comes stomping down the hall. She bashes open my door, grabs my drumsticks, and yells, "You may never get these back!" These are my very precious and only drumsticks. They were given to me by my cousin Jeremy when I was 8 years old. He has a drum set, just like I hope to have one day. I treasure these drumsticks. With all my heart and soul, I need them. I know I'm being dramatic, but I don't just like to drum. I have to drum. My body just drums. I'm always drumming on desks, counters, walls, floors with my hands, my fingers, my feet. Drumming just floats out of me, even unconsciously sometimes, until somebody yells, "Stop drumming!" The most hated words of my life are Lanie, stop drumming. I despise those words for 2 reasons. 1, I don't want to annoy people, and 2, I don't want to stop drumming. I know I am not a great drummer yet. How could I be? I'm not even allowed to have a drum set. My father says they're too loud, and my mother says they're not for girls. This is why my number 1 favorite group in the world is the Cowsills. They're a real family band, and if I were in that family, nobody would yell at me for playing the drums. The Bible says thou shalt not steal, and it's a commandment. And even though no one ever says thou or shalt anymore, it's still true. You're not supposed to take things that aren't yours just because you're in a bad mood, even if you are always in a bad mood. Hey, guess what? Right now, I'm in a very bad mood. I'm in a really bad mood. Chapter 4, One Good Friend. Wednesday, January 7th, 1970. I am wondering today where my mother put my drumsticks. My plan is to go in and rescue them. To be fair, sometimes my mom is in a good mood, and when that happens, I can usually count on her for some excellent advice. My mother is a very smart person. Once she told me that all you really need to get through life is one good friend. I think that is probably true, providing everyone else stops picking on you. My best friend, as I have told you, Journal, is Lois, and she has been since birth. Well, not quite since birth. She is 4 months younger than I am. How did I ever make it through those 4 months without her? Lois and I can talk about almost anything. We understand each other, and we always laugh and laugh and laugh together. Once we were actually kicked out of a store for laughing too loud, which only made us laugh louder. We have a lot of things in common, but not everything. For instance, Lois started wearing a bra last year, and she was really excited about it. She said it made her feel like a lady. Lois bought lipstick and eyeshadow. She likes to try them on and see what shades look best. The great thing, though, is that she doesn't mind if I don't like those things. And when I talk about the drums, Lois doesn't say, "That's stupid," like my sister does. She doesn't say, "That's not for girls," like my mother does. She listens. Lois has no problem with my passion for the drums, and she feels there is no reason why a girl can't play them. So yes, I know what a best friend is. A best friend is someone who doesn't tell you who you're supposed to be or who you're not supposed to be. A best friend is someone who listens to you. A best friend is someone who knows who you are and likes who you are. Chapter 5, About Clayton Murray. Thursday, January 8th, 1970. I changed in the bathroom stall today at gym. It worked out okay. Gretchen didn't notice, and I don't care what she thinks about me anyway, as long as she doesn't bother me. She talks about boys all the time, and that's the only reason she thinks bras are important. It's because she says boys like breasts, which I find weird. If they like them so much, why don't they grow their own? I told that to Lois today, and we laughed for about 15 minutes. The thing is, there is this one boy. His name is Clayton Murray, and I think he's really neat. He's very smart. He's not much into sports, but he's kind of popular, and I think it says a lot about a boy to not be into sports and to still be popular. I don't want to say that I actually like him, though, because I don't quite completely know him. We just sort of nod at each other. I'm only going to admit that I think he's intriguing. New vocabulary word. Oh, and two more things. He has a really nice face and he plays the upright bass in the stage band. Later the same day. Just now my dad caught me up late and he knocked on my door. He asked me if I was writing in my journal. I said I was, and I think that made him happy. He told me that he used to keep a journal when he was fighting in World War II. I asked him if he still has the journal, and he said he does have it somewhere, but that I'm too young to read it. There are things in there he says that I'm not ready to know about yet. Nothing I write in my journal will ever be as important as what a soldier would write in a war journal. I'm not trying to save the world. I'm just trying to survive middle school. But I think I'll keep writing in here. Maybe my father saved the world so that one day he could have a little girl who could write in her journal. Chapter 6. School and Classes. Friday, January 9th, 1970. In 7th grade, we changed rooms for different classes. It's been pretty confusing for me. I mean, here we are in January, and I still keep my schedule crumpled up in the zipper compartment of my 3-ring binder. I have math and home ec with Lois. Our friend Denise is with us in math. Denise is tall and skinny, and she's kind of shy. Our other friend Tracy is with me in social studies and in English. Tracy is short and sweet with very long blonde hair that hangs all the way down to her butt. In fact, if she tips her head back and pulls, she can sit on it. And then there's Maureen Fig. Maureen is not really my friend, but she would like to be. Maureen is very overweight. She has a big smile and a cheerful personality. Nothing seems to bother her, like when I don't really have time for her. But I can't help it. I already have 3 very good friends, and sometimes Maureen is talking to me when I'm very busy trying to look at Clayton Murray. Yes, also in my English class is the aforementioned Clayton Murray. He sits 2 rows in front of me and 1 row to the left, which gives me an excellent view of the back of his head while he's thinking, which he does a lot. He seems to be a very thoughtful person, but I confess once again that I don't really know him. If I nod at him, he nods back. Maybe it's better to nod at someone you don't know than to know him and ruin it. Clayton has a sort of serious look, but when he smiles, his eyes get really twinkly, which lights up his face. He has light brown hair and brown eyes. He's a little smaller and a little handsomer than a lot of the boys. But neither of those things makes him self-conscious or arrogant. He just has a certain easy confidence, or at least he seems to. I, however, am not confident even enough to fake confidence. Yesterday I found 3 more pimples. My mom is now threatening to take me to the skin doctor, and that's not even the worst of it. This morning she came into my room and she said, "Today, you and I are going shopping for bras." I just sat there mortified. All I could manage in response was, "Why?" "Because you're developing," she said, "and it's time you got used to wearing one." Then she added, "Oh, and while we're out, we'll buy you some deodorant and a razor for those legs." Chapter 7. The Discovery. Saturday, January 10th, 1970. Good afternoon. I am now the proud owner of a Lady Chic adjustable razor, a Canner Secret roll-on for women, and a training bra. The saleswoman at Jen's department store wrapped a tape measure around my chest. Then I had to put on the bra she brought me while she and my mom stood there and watched. I will need a day or 2 to recover from this, and I really hope that my breasts don't get any bigger. If they are too big, I'm scared that I won't be able to sleep on my stomach without tipping over. And I like sleeping on my stomach. Later the same day. Okay, so my parents went out tonight with the Unhers and the Anthons, and I decided to take this opportunity to sneak into their room and attempt to rescue my imprisoned drumsticks. Just so you know, this is a dangerous mission. My parents' room is highly off limits. From the time we were little, my mom and dad would go into their room and shut the door, and we all know that you better not knock unless you are on fire. But today, I felt a sense of righteousness in retrieving my very own, most valued possession. I walked slowly and carefully in my stocking feet so as not to disturb anything or to leave any footprints in the carpet. I did not find the drumsticks. Instead, something else happened. While reaching high up onto a top closet shelf, my hand touched something interesting. It felt warm and worn like soft leather with jagged pages. I pulled it down and I held it in both hands. Even in the darkness, I knew what it was. When I stepped into the light, I saw on the cover in dusty gold lettering, Journal, 1944 to 1945. My eyes grew wide and I rushed with it back into my room. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my father's journal to the first page, and I read these words. February 11th, 1944, Friday. We boarded the SS Uruguay at 10 a.m. after being served coffee on the dock by the Red Cross. I am on the promenade deck, with my bunk the third one up. I wonder if and when I will ever see the States again. Chapter 8, Two Dilemmas. Sunday, January 11th, 1970. It's 1 a.m. and I am supposed to be asleep, but I am not asleep. There are two reasons, and both of them are on my bed beside me right now. They are my training bra and my father's war journal. I bet you never thought you'd see those two items make it into the same sentence. I took the bra out of the bag. There are no cups, just stretchy, netty stuff across crisscrossy, pinchy straps and hooks. I hate it. Inside the cover of my dad's journal, I found a photo of him during the war. Maybe it was taken at boot camp. He's standing in front of some barracks, holding a rifle. He's wearing a helmet, and his uniform kind of droops around his skinny frame. When I stare at his face, I see eyes that look like mine. He was so young. How scared was he? My dilemmas are the following. A, do I read the journal? B, do I wear the bra? All of the above? None of the above? The journal is supposed to upset me, but I want to read it. The bra is not supposed to upset me, but I do not want to wear it. I'm a strange kid. Moment of thought. I have decided to address these dilemmas one at a time. First, the journal. It's late at night. Everyone is asleep, and I have a flashlight. I will read the first page under the covers and then make my decision. Here we go. February 12th, 1944, Sunday. We set sail today on the same date and from the same port that my father and mother landed in 23 years ago. The food is good. My cold is worse. March 24th, 1944, Friday. I wrote a letter to Ruthie. April 10th, 1944, Monday. I was given a few shots of physical and sent to a camp near King's Standing in England. I am living in a tent with 5 other fellows. Chapter 9, The Dreaded Bra. Monday, January 12th, 1970. I woke up with the journal on top of me, which is very dangerous. I quickly found a good place to hide it. It's inside the shoebox I used for drumming back when I had drumsticks, and I'll keep it on the top shelf of my closet. No one will ever go there. Meanwhile, it's time to face the day and the bra. Yuck. I know I am supposed to wear it, but when I put it on, it just felt awful. I hated it so much that I took it right off, and that made me feel guilty, so I found a workable solution. I put my undershirt back on, and then I put my bra on over my undershirt. Now it pinches much less, and I am looking at this as sort of a transitional phase, a training bra training period. No? Okay, I know it's strange. I never have promised to be normal, and I am just not ready yet to become a woman. Later the same day. Lois and I took the bus because it's freezing out. We usually meet up at the corner and walk to the bus stop at the end of Tristan Lane. This morning was the same as any other morning, except my legs were silky smooth, I smelled like an ocean breeze, and I was wearing a bra. But I didn't tell Lois about it because of the bigger than tiny detail that I was wearing my bra on top of my undershirt, and even Lois would think that that was weird. Let's face it, even I think it's weird. And anyway, Lois has been wearing a bra for 3 months and she loves it. Nothing ever seems to rattle Lois. For instance, she was thrilled when she got her period. I, on the other hand, was completely freaking out when I got mine. It came in April, near the end of 6th grade. I stayed home from school because I was, quotation marks, sick, and I didn't even get mad at Kurt when he called me, quotation marks, a faker. Okay, I didn't look sick, but I felt sick, and there was no sense in trying to explain menstruation to an 8-year-old boy who will never have to endure it. And yes, I did tell Lois when I got my period, but there are still certain things I am not willing to discuss with anyone except this journal. These certain things are currently as follows. The training bra in training, and my sort of, kind of, almost crush on Clayton Murray. So Lois and I got on the bus and we rode to school as if nothing were different, when really, I knew that everything was. Chapter 10, Mom's Mood. Tuesday, January 13th, 1970. I wore my bra on top of my undershirt again today, and nobody notices or cares but me. In my English class, we're reading Huckleberry Finn, which is a very famous book by Mark Twain, whose real name was Samuel Clemens. I wonder why he would want to change such a nice-sounding name. But then again, his title character is called Huckleberry, so maybe he didn't have the best judgment when it came to names. Clayton Murray sits one row over and two rows up so I can watch him read, and sometimes he'll turn a page back as if he wants to make certain he didn't miss something important. I think he's a very thoughtful person. Mr. Bruner asked us to read the first 2 chapters and then consider why Huck decided to take a raft down the Mississippi River. Well, he took a raft down the river so he wouldn't have to get civilized and so he could escape his mean daddy. But Mr. Bruner says there's a lot of symbolism in this book, so a mean daddy might represent something else. I don't know what else, so I hope I don't get called on until I can figure it out. After English, Maureen asked me if I wanted to go to the movies with her this weekend. She asks me this a lot, and I don't really want to go to the movies with Maureen. I hang out with Lois mostly on weekends, and I don't even know what I would have in common with Maureen. I feel bad for her. It would be so sad to me if I were as fat as Maureen, but it doesn't really bother her. She's always in a good mood, and she's kind to everyone. It makes me wonder if maybe before she was born, God said, "You get to be the nicest girl in school, but you also have to be the fattest." And Maureen said, "Okay." Now on to the question of should I or should I not read my father's journal. Okay, just one more page, and I will be better prepared then to make a final decision. June 6, 1944, Tuesday. Last night, planes were heard continuously from dusk till dawn. Today, our first sergeant read us the communication announcing that Allied troops had landed in France, and a big cheer went up from the ranks. June 21st, 1944, Wednesday. My unit received orders to ship out. We are in a marshalling area now near Southampton. From here we board ship for France. I don't feel scared now, although I expect to be in the future. In a way, I feel anxious to get underway, for the sooner the fight is won, the sooner we go home. Tuesday, January 13th, 1970, continued. Okay, so Dad is not yet in the heat of battle, and if I do stop reading now, and I am not promising anything, I will remain emotionally unscarred. But I don't want to stop reading now. Uh-oh, Mom's home. I just heard her slam a couple of doors, and now she's yelling at Kurt. I will be right back. Later. I'm back. Mom is upset because Kurt has 3 cavities, and now he's jumping around the house, belting out Downtown by Petula Clark at the top of his lungs and pretending to sing it in different languages. I think it's funny, but Mom just stormed into her room and she slammed the door. Sometimes I feel like I will never be happy inside this house. In my dad's journal, he's on his way to France to fight the war, and all he wants is to get back home. Chapter 11, Mrs. Baylor and the Film Projector. Wednesday, January 14th, 1970. This day was completely crazy. Let me explain. Our social studies teacher is Mrs. Baylor, and she's more than a little anxious and nervous and crabby. The boys in this class enjoy making her even more anxious, nervous, and crabby. And since Mrs. Baylor is about 80 years old, to me, that feels mean. Peter Haskell, Jeff Morrison, Mark Melitano, and that whole group sit in the back making fart noises with their armpits while Mrs. Baylor writes on the board. I sometimes wonder what idiot first stuck his hand in his armpit long enough to figure out this trick. Mrs. Baylor will hear the noise, and then she'll swing around shaking. Her voice quivers, and she says, "Who's doing that?" There's never any answer, just muffled giggles. Then she turns back to the board, and it happens again. I feel sorry for her, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. After all, I have to live with these kids. If I tried to say something, I would become a complete and total outcast until I went away to college where I could then forge a new identity. Besides, I have my own problems, and no teacher should get so upset about stupid farting noises. I'm guessing that boys have been making that noise since the dawn of time. There were probably pro-Magnon kids farting through their armpits in the back of a cave somewhere, and their teacher must have figured out how to handle it or people would never have evolved. But when the movie incident happened today, I maybe could have reacted differently, but I didn't, and that's all there is to it. The class started out fantastic. Mrs. Baylor sent Daniel Cucinato down to the AV room to get the movie projector. He's on the squad and he knows how to set it up. We were happy. A movie is a huge improvement over the endless droning of Mrs. Baylor. She has a sort of voice that can put coffee to sleep. Now, Daniel is a very nice kid, but Mrs. Baylor doesn't trust any of the boys in our class, and she insisted on threading the movie herself. When she was ready, she said, "Shh," as loudly as a person can say a word without vowels. Then she asked Nancy Van Etten to turn off the lights.
"This film is called The Balance of Power," Mrs. Baylor said, "and I want you to pay very strict attention. After we watch the film, we will hold a discussion about the 3 branches of government and the balance of power."
Then she repeated the last 4 words, "the balance of power." As Mrs. Baylor clicked on the projector, the boys in the back quietly mimicked her, echoing,
"The balance of power, the balance of power."
The film started to roll, the title came up on the screen, and the boys kept repeating,
"The balance of power,"
while the rest of the class giggled. Mrs. Baylor never heard a thing. She walked to the front of the room, took her seat behind her desk, opened the teacher's edition of You and Your Society, and closed her eyes. It wasn't very long before I heard giggles and saw kids poking each other and pointing at the film projector, which was situated right next to me. Tracy gave me a funny look and leaned her head toward the projector. I looked over at it and saw that the film was threading from the first reel past the projector bulb, but as it came out the other side, it wasn't winding up onto the second reel. Instead, the second reel was spinning madly as the film fed past the bulb and spilled out onto the floor, creating an ever-widening tangled pile of celluloid. I gasped and I started to raise my hand until Peter Haskell poked me in the back of the head and said, "Don't say anything." Choking back a giggle, I pulled my hand down and looked around the room. I saw shoulders shaking as kids attempted to suppress their laughter while watching the heap of snarled film collecting on the floor. Tracy and I couldn't help it. We came down with a serious case of the giggles. I mean, it was pretty funny. Mrs. Baylor was completely oblivious. She occasionally opened her eyes, folded and refolded her arms across her chest, and then she looked up at the projected movie, nodding approvingly at the narrator's concise articulation on the finer points of our founder's vision of government. Meanwhile, the pile of film on the floor kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. When the movie sputtered past its last frame, we were all in a state of near collapse from the sustained effort of attempting to suppress our laughter, and none of us knew a thing more about the balance of power, no more than we had known when the movie began. However, we all knew exactly how much space 30 minutes of film takes up on a classroom floor. Mrs. Baylor stood from her desk and asked Nancy Van Etten to turn the lights back on. I was still stifling one last snicker as Mrs. Baylor walked over to the projector and switched it off. As the lights came on, Mrs. Baylor gazed around the classroom and said,
"There you have it, the balance of power."
Then she saw it. The entire movie was spilled into a giant, crumpled pile underneath the projector, spreading out and around the surrounding desks and feet, including my own. Mrs. Baylor stared at the mess for what seemed like a full minute. The room was completely silent except for Peter Haskell's muffled giggle. I stared into Mrs. Baylor's face, which was twisted into a very hurt expression. Her voice shook as she looked at each one of us and almost choked on her words.
"You people knew this was happening."
Nobody said a word.
"You all knew this was happening."
I had to look away from Mrs. Baylor's face. It was just too sad.
"Everyone is dismissed."
Nobody moved. We weren't supposed to switch classes for another 15 minutes.
"Everyone is dismissed now."
Slowly, we started to get up, collecting our things and moving toward the door. That's when I heard Mrs. Baylor say,
"Lady!"
She reached out and held my arm, and she gripped it tightly as the rest of the class filed out of the room past me. I looked and saw the tears in Mrs. Baylor's eyes.
"You were sitting right next to the projector. You knew this was happening."
I was close to tears myself. All I could do was lower my head and mumble, "I'm sorry."
"You're sorry,"
Mrs. Baylor said. Then she placed her hand on the back of a chair to steady herself.
"Wind the film back onto the reel," she said, "and return it to the AV department, please."
With that, Mrs. Baylor silently walked out of the classroom. Chapter 12, The Incident, Thursday, January 15th, 1970. What I am about to tell you happened 5 hours ago, and I am still shaking. Forgive the handwriting, which is crummy even when I am not devastated. Well, today I was changing into my gym suit in the bathroom cubicle inside the locker room. This is a system that has been working well for me. Nobody cares or notices, including the queen bee, Gretchen, and her worker bees, Martha and Cindy. They were all busy practicing their fantastic new cheer, note the sarcasm, which goes, "Spirit, spirit, who wants to hear it? Clap, clap, stomp, stomp, clap, 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 stomp, stomp." Well, big surprise, Cindy was having trouble coordinating her claps with her stomps, and Gretchen and Martha were coaching her on to cheerleading VICTORY. Yay! So I was operating under the assumption that nobody was noticing little me quietly changing inside a bathroom stall. We wear these stupid and yucky cotton gym suits that are blue shorts and a top all in one piece which snaps up the front with a spiffy little collar. Ugh! They are horrid, stinky, and mandatory. So I had just slipped my legs into my gym suit and was pulling it over my hips when I sort of noticed that the cheerleading drill had stopped. And then, all of a sudden, here comes the part that you will truly not believe. I heard an odd thump, and then, very much to my shock and utter mortification, Gretchen's head popped underneath my bathroom stall door. Her tiny, pale blue eyes were glaring up at me with a wicked grin that quickly turned into a twisted grimace. There was a brief, hushed moment as I desperately covered myself with my arms. Then Gretchen's sharp, shrill voice pierced the silence with words of horror that bounced and echoed around the walls of the locker room, just as they will echo forever inside my head.
"Oh my God, Lanie Spurdle is wearing her bra over her undershirt."
Just then, 2 more heads popped up under the stall as I backed away in terror and tripped over the toilet while attempting to snap up my gym suit.
"Why are you wearing your bra over your undershirt, Lanie?"
screamed Cindy. "It's none of your business," I sputtered. This is when Gretchen pulled her entire body under the door and into the stall, followed quickly by Cindy and then Martha.
"Can you believe this?
"Get out of here," I yelled.
Why would anyone wear a bra over an undershirt?"
asked Martha, her face an inch away from mine.
"Do you not understand how to get dressed?"
"Maybe it's because she's a queer or a dope," said Gretchen, yanking and pulling at my gym suit. "Leave me alone," I screamed, and then I tripped over the toilet again, this time flushing it while frantically snapping up my gym suit.
"I don't believe it," Cindy yelled over the flushing water. "Nobody would be stupid enough to wear a bra over an undershirt. I mean, that's so retarded."
"Well, believe it," Gretchen said as she grabbed again at my gym suit and ripped it open. I gasped in complete humiliation. I yanked myself away from her and scrambled under the cubicle wall into the next stall, which was, thank you, God, empty. "You guys are sick," I yelled, the whole while knowing that everyone in the locker room was hearing this entire exchange.
"We're not the ones wearing a bra over an undershirt, you giant phoebe,"
Gretchen hollered as I ran from the locker room past all of the stunned and staring faces into the hall. I kept running straight down the hall to the very end, and then out the school's back door, across the parking lot, and all the way into a neighbor's backyard where I stood for a moment, gasping for giant gulps of air. I was shaking so badly. What was I supposed to do now? I couldn't go home yet. School wasn't over for another period. My mom would know I had skipped gym, and how was I going to explain where my clothes were? On top of which, I was freezing. The thought of going back to get my clothes and books was and is paralyzing. How can I ever walk into that place again? How many people heard Gretchen scream my innermost personal secret? And even if only one person heard her, it would still be all over the entire school in seconds. No matter how much trouble I am in, I can never again go back to Mill Middle. Where can a kid find a raft and a river in suburban Buffalo? I do not wish to write any details of the above event ever again in this journal. So from this point forward, we will refer to what happened as the incident. After the incident, I ran in the freezing cold to Lois's house and waited for her to come home from school. I sat on a tricycle in her garage and wrapped myself in a blanket. By the time Lois arrived, my face was numb, and I attempted through my chattering teeth to tell her what had happened. Well, big surprise, she already knew. It's all over school. We went into her room so I could put on some of her clothes, and she started asking me why I just can't wear my bra like a normal person. But then she noticed that I was crying, and she said, "You don't have to if you don't want to." Lois also thinks that Gretchen should be arrested for what she did. She said it's like an invasion of privacy crime or something illegal to break into a bathroom stall and rip someone's clothes off. Maybe so, but I have never seen anything like it on Adam 12, and I am in no big hurry to describe the details of the incident to any Kent or McCord or real-life policeman, or especially to my parents. Isn't it enough that the entire school knows? I don't think anyone in the history of the world has ever been as embarrassed as I am right now. Later that night, after dinner, I went into my room and shut the door, and I cranked up my record player with Simon and Garfunkel singing "Somewhere They Can't Find Me." I have no drumsticks, so I picked up a flashlight and an empty paper towel roll, and I started banging away on my pillow. It felt so good. I gotta creep down the alleyway, fly down the highway. Before they come to catch me, I'll be gone somewhere. They can't find me. I was drumming on a book, on a suitcase, on the floor, on the desk, drumming out all of my rage and frustration till Annie pounded on the door. Stop drumming! I kept drumming, but more softly on my bed, until Kurt pounded on the door. Stop drumming! I kept drumming, but even more softly on a pillow, and then I heard angry footsteps and my door swung open. It was my mother standing there with a distorted glare. I was trying to be quiet, Mom. She grabbed the paper towel tube and the flashlight from my hands and stormed away, slamming the door behind her. It could have been funny, but it wasn't. Good thing she didn't take the pillow, too, because I needed that to cry into. Chapter 13. Facing the World. Friday, January 16th, 1970. I kept my head low as Lois and I got off the bus this morning and walked toward the school. Is anyone looking? I asked. No, not really. Just then, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I carefully turned to look. It was Maureen Figg, who stood perfectly still, holding her books to her chest and smiling. Hi, Maureen, I said. Hi, Lanie, Maureen said, still smiling. I was not at all sure what to say next, so I pushed my lips back and forth and glanced over at Lois, who shrugged. I think you're a great girl, Maureen said. I think you are too, I said back to her, almost as if it were a question. On any other day, I would have just said, see ya, and headed on into school with my friends, but today that wasn't as simple an option. Lois was gently pulling at my arm as Maureen nodded and complimented the way my hair ribbon matched my blouse. Just then, a pack of nasty 8th grade boys ran up and bumped into Maureen on purpose, barking, Oink, 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 piggy, figgy! Maureen acted as if she never even heard them, but her face turned bright red. Those stupid boys are such idiots. But I had my own war to fight. I still needed to pull my scrambled thoughts together and figure out how to get safely into the school from where I was standing, and if anything at all remained of my social standing, it was not being improved upon by chatting in front of the building with Maureen Figg. See you in English, I said to Maureen as Lois tugged again at my arm, and I steadied myself. Here goes, I said. We began walking toward the school. I stopped for a moment to readjust my books, stalling. Come on, Lanie. We're going to miss the bell, Lois said. I took a deep breath, picked up my head, and stared up the steps. The voice came from behind. Hey, it's the Spurdle Girdle girl. It was Peter Haskell. I turned my face away from him as he bumped up next to me and jabbed his elbow into my chest. Ow! Cut it out, I yelled at him. Peter took off running and laughing. I stopped walking and clutched my books to my stomach. I can't go in there, I said to Lois. What are you going to do, become a dropout, Lois asked. I could learn a trade, I said, maybe welding or dental hygienist. Lanie, you have to get this over with and act like you don't care. Act like I don't care, I repeated. Yes. Lois walked up close to me and whispered, What are you wearing under there anyway today? Can we not talk about this? Why won't you just wear the bra? Because I'm afraid of it. I know it sounds stupid. Lois wrinkled her eyebrows a bit, and she bit her lower lip. Yeah, but my Aunt Donna is afraid of dogs. We have to lock Button in the cellar when she comes over. I started to smile. My little brother's afraid of worms, I said. He won't go outside after it rains. See, lots of people are weird, Lois said. I giggled just a little. Come on, let's go to school, I said. And you know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yes, the 3Bs called me Spurdle Girdle and giggled together all the way through lunch. How hilarious are they? More sarcasm. Yes, Peter Haskell kept running up and trying to elbow me in the chest while his friends laughed, but the last time he did it, Lois called him a stupid perv, and Peter ducked away and asked his friends what that meant. By English class, I had already started to relax. Mr. Bruner was talking about what the Mississippi River represents in Huckleberry Finn. And this was pretty interesting to me. I didn't know that a river could represent anything other than a lot of water heading toward an ocean. Clayton Murray raised his hand and said he thinks the river represents freedom. Oh my gosh, I thought, he is just about the smartest boy I've ever known. If only I actually knew him. And then, all at once, Huckleberry Finn and rivers and symbolism started lining up together inside my head. I felt myself raising my hand. Lanie, Mr. Bruner said, I think the river also represents courage. Can you explain that, Lanie? Well, Huck is running from his mean daddy, who's scary, and Jim is running from slavery, which is scary, and the two of them running together is scary, but still, they're trying to get to a better life, so... Okay, I admitted I was winging it. So maybe the river represents courage because the river is teaching Huck to be brave. That's very good, Lanie. The river is helping Huck face his fears. Anyone else? Nobody spoke for a moment, and then Cindy Finderbean said,
That's very good, Spurdle Girdle.
I'm sorry, Cindy. Did you have something to add? Mr. Bruner asked. By this time, my face was so red I thought it might be melting. No, thank you very much, Mr. Bruner. Wonderful. Let's move on. Who else has some thoughts about the river? I knew that Clayton had heard Cindy's comment, and I knew, too, that I would never, ever be able to look at him or nod at him again. He must think I'm the biggest freak on the face of the earth. When the class ended, I collected my books, focusing very hard on this activity, with my eyes trained only on the task at hand. That's why I didn't hear him when he came up. That was a good point you made about courage. It was Clayton's voice. Slowly, I raised my head and looked at him. His eyes were very clear and alert. I had never seen his face as closely before. It was such a nice face. It made me sort of woozy. I think I remember feeling myself smile and then willing my brain to tell my mouth to say, thank you, which I believe it did, but I can't be certain. Clayton continued to look at me. I don't think I breathed. There was a pause, and then he said, that was pretty lame, what Cindy said. I stared at him and was completely silent. Even with a great deal of effort, I was only able to put together the words, and yeah. He kept looking at me. People can be silly, I think. People, yes, sure they can, yes. By this time, Clayton and I were moving and we were walking into the hallway together. I mean, what's the big deal anyway, he said. About whatever it is people are saying you have on, I mean. I could feel my face getting hotter and hotter. Well, it's just that I began, it's embarrassing. Clayton stopped me. Look, if I were wearing boxers over my jockey shorts, would you think that was weird? No, I don't know too much about what boys wear. Probably more than I know about what girls wear. He smiled at me. Oh, I smiled back, but my brain was empty. I mean, completely empty. The only thing inside my head was a swoosh of air and a thump, 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 pounding in my ears. I gotta go, Clayton said. Clayton, I said, forcing words to form. Yeah? I liked what you said about the river and freedom. Oh, thanks, he said. I'll see you later. I watched him walk for only a second. I needed to turn away so my face could form the expression that was inside my head, which was, oh my gosh! I started walking quickly to study hall, very busily absorbing what this boy had just said to me. I was walking almost as fast as the thoughts were racing through my mind. First and foremost, what just happened was that Clayton Murray and I definitely had a conversation back there, on top of which we had a conversation about underwear. This was so entirely monumental, it toppled every other thought swirling through my head and lodged itself into a place from which no other thought would ever loosen it. But that didn't stop the new thoughts from coming. They just kept flying and tumbling past the monumental thought. New thoughts like, are Clayton and I friends now? Does he think I'm smart? Does he think I'm pretty? Will he speak to me like this ever again? Will we talk on the phone one day about life and people and Huckleberry Finn and underwear? Oh my gosh, there was no avoiding that gigantic thought. It was interfering with every new thought, every old thought, every curious thought like, what is the difference between boxers and jockey shorts? All right, let's do some post-game analysis. Okay, if you stop to think about it, the incident is the very event that led to Clayton Murray and me having a grown-up and sophisticated conversation in the first place. Now you tell me, how much more ironic, new vocabulary word, can life get? On top of which are two very big and significant facts. A, apparently he does not think I'm weird, and B, we have now gone very far beyond a nodding acquaintanceship. In fact, we have bonded over something, well, I would just have to call it downright personal. Going back to school post-incident, knowing that the whole school knows, was truly terrifying, especially since the whole school includes Clayton Murray. But as it turns out, other than Lois and sort of Maureen Fig, the only person who went out of his way to make me feel better was Clayton Murray. Amazing. And now, with this life-altering conversation humming in my brain, I may even feel bold enough tomorrow to wear the training bra all by itself. Maybe. Chapter 14. To read or not to read. As you know, dear journal, my father's war journal is still in my possession, and as you also know, I have been considering whether or not I should return it before I read any further and possibly damage my young mind. My father specifically told me that I am not old enough to see what's in there. What am I getting myself into? I'm a kid who does what she is told to do. Borrowing this journal officially counts as my first act of teenage rebellion. Why did I even take it? Was I just trying to get back at my mother for stealing my drumsticks? Hold on, I am stopping to think. Interesting, while I was stopping to think, my hand reached over and touched the journal. I am so sorry, parental wisdom and authority, but I really, really, really need to read this journal right now. I know I'm doing something I was told not to do, but I am trying to use judgment like Huckleberry Finn when he helps Jim. I need to keep reading my father's war journal, and I will put it right back where I found it when I am done, and no one will ever know. This is a promise. June 22nd, 1944, Thursday. I was given 80 rounds of ammunition, K rations, seasick pills, and sulfa pills. Also, a small book on French and one on German. We must be ready to leave on 5 minutes' notice. June 26, 1944, Monday. I just went up on deck to get my first look at France. We got orders yesterday at 7 p.m. to leave the marshalling area and board an LST. It was like entering the mouth of a huge whale. We left England at 8 a.m. this morning. I played cards all afternoon to keep my mind off the German subs. According to the sports announcement over the BBC, Buffalo split a doubleheader with Baltimore yesterday. I wonder if Dad and Bernard saw the game. We will wait offshore tonight and disembark tomorrow morning at high tide. I am going to sleep now. It will probably be my last sleep in a long time in a real bed. Chapter 15, A Knock on the Door. I was reading anxiously way past my bedtime, so it really startled me when I heard a knock on the door. I quickly hid Dad's journal under the covers. Come in? It was my father. You're still up? Yeah, I'm just reading. It's Friday night, Dad. Yes, and it's also 11:30. You should put the lights out and go to sleep. Dad? Yes? What was your job in the war? I was an anti-aircraft gunner. You shot down planes? Yes. Did you kill people? I believe I did. That's sad, isn't it? It is, but I killed people who were trying to kill me. Were they dropping bombs on you? We'll talk about this another time. I don't want you to have bad dreams. Okay. Good night, Dad. Good night. He closed the door, and I reached for the journal. There was no way I could stop reading now. June 28, 1944, Wednesday. Yesterday, at 7 a.m., I disembarked in France. There were wrecked barges on the beach. Montebourg was the first town we went through, and no words can describe the shape of that town. Hardly a building stood untouched by our bombs. We next passed through Valognes, which looked still worse. The people stood all along the road and waved to us. We then proceeded through Cherbourg, which had just been taken. Gliders could be seen on many fields. The artillery can be heard pounding away at German strongpoints west of Cherbourg. One of our truck drivers killed a German with his machine gun last night. I slept in a slit trench last night and got a good night's sleep. Today, I was assigned to a gun position, and I like it here. A P-51 strafed C battery gun position and killed 2 of our men. The plane was shot down. Friday, January 16, 1970, continued. What is strafed? I've never seen that word before. I will look it up tomorrow. Right now, I can barely keep my eyes open. Chapter 16, The Boy in the Picture. Saturday, January 17th. It's morning. Last night I dreamed that I was a French child standing along a dusty road and waving at my father as he marched past. He smiled gently at me. Later, this morning my father was sitting at the kitchen table drinking his cup of instant Nescafe and reading the Courier Express, just like he always does. I was eating a bowl of Life cereal and reading the back of the box, just like I always do. But this time I really looked at him. He is the boy in the picture. The boy in my dream, who marched across France, smiling at villagers and shooting down planes and sleeping in ditches and dodging bombs. His face is a little thicker, his hair is a little thinner, and now he's in color. But he is that boy. My dad looked up from his paper and I jumped just a little. Sweetie, could you pour me a little more coffee, he said. Just like every morning? Sure. I poured the coffee for him, which he drank, and I ate my cereal. We sat there silently just like every morning, but this morning I quietly peeked at him over the top of a Life cereal box. There was so much I wanted to ask him, but I couldn't. This morning had to be just like every morning. I have decided to tell absolutely no one about my father's journal. It's very hard, though. It is screaming inside me. I have known my entire life that my father fought in the war, but I never really knew what that meant. Monday, January 19th, 1970. In English class today, Clayton Murray smiled at me and I smiled back at him. The Huckleberry Finn discussion is getting very interesting. We are talking about morality and how the choices people make can affect their lives and the lives of those around them. I did not raise my hand as I had not yet read the chapters. I was too busy reading my father's journal. That's a choice I made that affected my life today. Oh, just now I looked up the word strafe in my dictionary, and this is what it says. Strafe, verb, to attack. Ground troops, for example, with a machine gun or cannon from a low-flying aircraft. So my quiet, solemn, sweet father spent 2 years marching across Europe and being shot at from low-flying planes. Unbelievable. In gym class, the teasing is starting to become really obnoxious. During field hockey, Gretchen shoved me so hard I tripped on my stick and fell. It hurt, and Gretchen's stupid worker bees just laughed. This made me really angry, and something came over me. I jumped up and hollered, "What the heck is your problem?" Then I got right in Gretchen's face and said, "Stay away from me. Do you hear me?" And I swear I was so livid I did not care what she might do to me. Gretchen just looked at me with her all-purpose disapproving grimace. "Get over it," was all she had to say. But the look she gave me screamed, "Just wait." The game was continuing as girls ran toward the other goal, but I stood there for a second thinking about what I had just done. The courage to do it had come from somewhere inside me, and I was both startled and afraid of it. Finally, I pulled myself together and I ran off down the field. I wish I had my drumsticks. I need them now. Pencils are a weak substitute. The funny thing is that Annie yells, "Stop drumming," even when I just drum with my hands in the air. I need to stop writing so I can read Huckleberry Finn and then get back to Dad's journal. June 30th, 1944, Friday. Last night, we had just finished digging our slit trenches next to our gun to sleep in when some flares were dropped on us by a German plane. It showed our position, as clear as day. The flares were followed by bombs. No one was hurt, but we all looked pretty pale. It's funny what goes through your mind during a time of danger. It's still raining, and we feel pretty miserable. Chapter 17, The Locker. Tuesday, January 20th, 1970. 7th graders get their own lockers at Mill Middle, and I love it. This is the first piece of space outside my home over which I can claim any personal ownership or responsibility. I have proudly decorated my locker with photos of the Buffalo Bills, the Cowsills, and a drum set, my favorite team, my favorite band, and my favorite passion. I keep it all safe with a brand new master lock, combination 28612. Shh. Good thing I can lock this journal with a key. Okay, so here is what happened. I was stopping at my locker right before English to exchange my science book for my math book when all of a sudden the 3 Bs approach in line formation, as if they're about to start chanting, "Got spirit? Let's hear it." Very quickly, they formed a tight circle around me. So I went to shut my locker door. They have already invaded enough of my privacy, thank you very much. But before I could close it, Gretchen's hand shot out and she slammed my locker door open again. Then she says, "Will you look at these groovy pictures? So this is why you're afraid of your bra? You're a boy." Cindy and Martha flanked Gretchen, all of them glaring at my locker door with total disdain. I just stood there. "You can ask any doctor," I said. "They will confirm that I am not a boy." "Oh, well then please explain the football team and the drums, sir." Cindy and Martha laughed on cue. "Yeah, explain them. You must be a boy or something," Cindy said. "Girls can like these things," I said with a certain amount of fake confidence. "Oh, girls and you can like the Buffalo Bills, sir. Then it's really too bad about your picture." Gretchen's hand reached up for the corner of my very own, sent away for a colored glossy Buffalo Bills 1969-1970 team lineup photo. I panicked and I gasped. I went to block Gretchen's arm, but I missed. Just then I heard a thump and I felt a bump as Maureen came charging through the 3 Bs to get to her own locker, knocking Cindy into Martha, who knocked Martha into Gretchen, and that got Gretchen out of the way in time for me to slam my locker door shut. Oops, Maureen said. Will you watch where you're going, fatso? Gretchen shouted. This was followed by a chorus of, yeah, watch it, Tubby, and oink, oink, piggy, figgy. I gave Maureen a grateful look, and Maureen just smiled. The three bees held their ground and turned their wrath from me toward Maureen. Did your mother sew that dress out of the tablecloth because real clothes don't fit you, fig face? Gretchen barked. Yeah, I can tell it's a tablecloth because it's got food stains, Cindy said. And it smells like a casserole and gravy, Martha said. Where did your mother shop for this beautiful item? Asked Gretchen. Woolworth's, 5 and dime? Was it 5 cents or 10? Maureen touched the fabric of her dress. This happens to be a 500 thread count silk cotton blend designer sheet from Macy's Fine Linens. Jealous? Wow. Can you believe the girl under pressure? I didn't know if I was supposed to laugh or not, so I just rearranged my books. Then I looked for an exit plan, but I was completely blocked. Maureen just calmly turned to get something out of her locker. She shut her locker door and looked back, adding, and it was hand-stitched by Bob Mackey. Excuse me. And she shoved right past the three bees. Are you coming to English, Lanie? Maureen called as she waited for me. Behind her, Clayton and his friends were approaching. Yeah, I said, I'll see you there. Then, thank you, God, the bell rang, and the three bees gave me one last scornful look, and everyone hurried to class. Chapter 18, A Glimpse of Stalking. Hold on, my brother is banging at my door. Kurt wants to play Pop-O-Matic Trouble with me, and I told him I can play after dinner. Right now, I need to keep reading my dad's journal. July 7th, 1944, Friday. We are just outside Carrington. The medic assigned to our gun crew was getting a nervous breakdown, so they gave us a new one. 2 German snipers were shot out of a tree in the adjoining field last night. A couple of French kids told us where they were. When we answer the field phone here, just to add a little humor, we say, Hollywood Hotel. July 8th, 1944, Saturday. 5 boys were killed by snipers last night in the field artillery outfit that we are protecting against enemy aircraft. I hid in the bushes while on guard last night with a grenade and a rifle, hoping a German would come by, but the hour passed with no incident. Our artillery was fighting all last night. I can't understand why they don't give way. With a pair of binoculars, I watched our P-51s and 47s dive bomb the German line. One plane dove, got hit, caught fire, and went straight to the ground. It was like watching a movie, only more so. When I see the condition of the French children here, I wonder how they can be so happy and playful. They wear wooden shoes and old torn clothes. They all smoke, and many have welts all over their legs. They live in old barns with holes in the roof, and there is little sanitation. Many of the children have syphilis. They don't go to school and have never even seen a movie. If every American could see how these people live, I don't think there would ever be any more complaints in the States about rationing, etc. July 9th, 1944, Sunday. I am sitting my shift on the 40 now and watching the sun sink in the west, the direction of home. It's so peaceful and quiet now, compared to this afternoon, that it seems hard to believe that this is a combat zone. I wonder what it will be like to see my folks and friends again. I can't help but think about them now. I haven't heard from Ruthie for a couple of weeks now. Tuesday, January 20th, 1970, continued. Why wouldn't my mother write to him? This is so cruel. I am listening and I can hear in the kitchen right now. Usually she's knocking pans around and sighing deeply, but today she's singing Cole Porter. That's a good sign. I know all of my parents' music. When they're out, I go through their record collection and I play everything I can get my hands on. My favorites are Perry Como, the Mills Brothers, Andy Williams, Sammy Davis Jr., Stephen Eady, and Nat King Cole. Oh, and Fred Astaire and Louis Armstrong. I have a lot of favorites. None of my friends know that I listen to this music except for Lois. I guess I'm stalling. Mom is singing Anything Goes. You know, she has a really pretty voice. I need some answers, so here I go. Later. Well, I'm back. And to the best of my recollection, here is how it went. Hi, Mom. Hi, Lanie. How was school? Good, we're reading Huckleberry Finn. Oh, that's nice. I took a Pop-Tart out of the box and started eating it. Lanie, please use a plate when you eat. The crumbs are getting everywhere. Now wipe this up. It's almost 5. What did I say about no snacks after 4:30? This is how quickly things can turn ugly. I got a plate and wiped up the crumbs. Then I wrapped up the rest of the Pop-Tart, sat at the kitchen table and watched my mother stir soup while I assessed her ever-evolving mood. In a little bit, she started singing again. The world has gone mad today, and good's bad today, and black's white today, and day's night today, and those guys today, the women prize today, are just silly gigolos. I looked at my mom. Mom? What? Was that song a hit during World War II? No, that's a Cole Porter song from the 30s. Oh, well, what songs were popular during the war? Let's see, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree with Anyone Else But Me. Till Then by the Mills Brothers, you know that one. There were lots of songs about missing people and about hope back then, and did you miss anyone? Of course, I missed your father. Did you write to Dad during the war? Yes, sure, I wrote to him. Did he write back? He did. Who wrote more? Why all these questions, Lanie? I'm just curious. Okay, let me see. A very far expression came over my mother's face, and I sat there and I stared at her eyes. I had never before seen them look that way. When your daddy left for the war, I was still a child. I was 16 years old, and I didn't write him as much as I should have. Why? Well, I cared for him and I wanted to write more, but I was terrified. Of what? She started to raise her voice. Of what? Of the war, of losing him, of everything. But you still could have written. Lanie, I was in high school and I didn't know if I would be able to cope with. I had to live my life here. I just couldn't bear to be afraid all day, every day. I suddenly snapped. But he had to be. My mother became very quiet. I stood up and waited for the explosion, which didn't come. I'm not as brave as he is. I looked again at my mother's eyes. They were crying. At that moment, Kurt came running into the room, swinging a bat and yelling, "Somebody stole my socks!" Annie ran in after him, shouting, "Nobody wants your stupid socks, you little idiot!" "Well, somebody stole them," Kurt yelled, swinging the bat and knocking over a jar of marshmallow fluff and a box of Carnation instant breakfast. "Nobody in this house wears smelly boy socks except for you," Annie hollered. "All of you, go to your rooms right now," Mom screamed. So we did. And we didn't come out again until we were called to the table for dinner. Nobody spoke during dinner. Our mother just sat there. She didn't eat. When we finished, our mother went back into her room and she slammed the door. Annie, Kurt, and I cleared the table and did the dishes. Dad came home from work. "Hello," he said. "Where's your mother?" "She's in her room," Annie said. Our father scowled at us. If our mother was in a bad mood, it was our fault. My parents sent us back to our rooms, and right now, they are eating alone together in the dining room. So here I am, and I'm going to go back to reading my dad's journal. July 13th, 1944, Thursday. We moved up a couple days ago. There were dead Germans on the sides of the road and a few dead French women who went along with their German boyfriends. We set up our gun in a field with dead cows lying around, bloated to twice their original size, and the smell is sickening. We now have 16 men on our gun crew. 4 letters from home yesterday, none from Ruthie. July 14th, 1944, Friday. This morning, for nearly an hour, our gun crew got the worst shelling since we are in France. A 150 landed within 75 yards of us. The shrapnel whistled over our heads. Every shell sounds as if it's going to land right on you. I don't wish that experience on anyone. July 24th, 1944, Monday. In the past 10 days, the following things took place. 1, our mission has changed, and we are now protecting something else, which because of strict censorship or secrecy, I will not mention, should this diary ever fall into enemy hands. 2, the sun shone today for the first time in a week, and the big drive has opened. Hundreds of bombers and fighters flew over today. 3, I received a letter from Ruthie. Chapter 19, The Most Handsome Teacher. Wednesday, January 21st, 1970. Today, something very strange and interesting happened in social studies. I had just taken my seat next to Tracy, and we were talking softly about our recent string of substitute teachers. Mrs. Baylor has been sick since the film projector event, and each sub has been more pathetic than the one before. In fact, yesterday's teacher, Miss Darling, had a large wart in the middle of her forehead, a white patch of whiskers on her chin, and several missing teeth. She was anything but darling. I told Tracy that her name should be mislabeled. We were dissolved in a fit of laughter when a man walked into the room. He wasn't just any man. He was the most handsome man I have ever seen in my life in person. Tracy and I just stared at him with our mouths half open, and then we stared at each other before turning back to stare at him again as he placed his briefcase on the teacher's desk. He cleared his throat and said, "Hello, my name is Mr. Helfenstein, and I am your new social studies teacher." Oh my God, I believe I actually said that out loud as I looked at Tracy with shock and joy. If he heard me, Mr. Helfenstein ignored it and kept talking. "I am sorry to report to you that Mrs. Baylor has retired." A cheer went up from the boys in the back of the room. "I don't think that's appropriate," Mr. Helfenstein said. The joy was then sucked right out of me just as suddenly as it had flooded in. I had to raise my hand. Mr. Helfenstein called on me and asked me to say my name. I told him my name and I asked, "Why is she retiring?" "I think she felt it was the right time for her to retire," he said. I sank back into my seat. "Mrs. Baylor has not been sick. She is quitting, and it's all my fault. I could have turned off that projector, but I didn't, and now Mrs. Baylor is home with no job and a broken heart, and all because of me." Suddenly, Mr. Helfenstein wasn't so handsome anymore, and I really didn't hear too much of what he had to say from that point on, although the rest of the girls in the room were hanging on his every word until the bell rang, when he announced, "I will see you all tomorrow." As the other kids left the room, I got up from my desk and I walked over to Mr. Helfenstein's desk. Mr. Helferstein? Helfenstein. Yes, Mr. Helfenstein, sorry. Do you know if Mrs. Baylor left because of us? Do you mean, did she leave because of the behavior of the students in this class? Yes. I've been told that had a lot to do with it. Oh. I started to walk away. Then I turned back and I said, "Thank you, Lanie." "Yes. Is there anything you want to talk about?" "No, thank you." I left the room and walked to my next class. Guilt is a bad feeling. I know it's not all my fault that Mrs. Baylor left. It's just that I also know I could have helped, and I didn't. I know she was not the best teacher in the world, but what we did to her was very mean. I know I never laughed at her or made farting noises with my armpit. In fact, I never did anything. It's what I didn't do. Chapter 20. Mr. Helfenstein in Trunks. Thursday, January 22nd, 1970. On the bus this morning, I told Lois what happened with Mrs. Baylor. Lois said that it wasn't my fault, which is exactly what I needed to hear from my best friend. It made me feel so much better, like I am finally free to enjoy my super handsome teacher, Mr. Helfenstein. The bus stopped to pick up Tracy, who jumped on and ran down the aisle to where Lois and I were sitting. "Guess what?" Tracy nearly screamed. "What?" Lois and I asked. "Mr. Helfenstein is going to be coaching the swim team." "Whoa," I said. "I'm joining," Tracy said. "He's that cute?" Lois asked. "He's gorgeous," Tracy said. "You can barely swim," Lois said. "Like I said, he's gorgeous," Tracy said. We all broke up laughing. "He looks like Tom Jones," I said, and we cracked up again, especially when I began singing, "It's not unusual to be loved by Mr. Helfen Gorgeous." "I think he's better looking than Tom Jones," Tracy said. "Ooh," I said. "Do you think when he coaches the swim team, he'll be wearing trunks?" We giggled and we giggled some more, and it made me wonder why I have no problem laughing with my friends about our super handsome teacher, but I can't tell them about the boy I really like. Mr. Helfenstein really is very nice to look at. There is no denying that fact, but today, in class, as he stood where Mrs. Baylor used to stand, I just kept getting this sinking feeling that I don't really deserve to look at him. I certainly don't deserve to see him in his swim trunks. July 25th, 1944, Tuesday. Last night I saw a truck with 500 pounds of TNT on it get hit by an 88. The concussion was terrific. Today, over 200 heavy bombers flew over our gun positions, together with hundreds of P-38s and 47s. We saw 2 bombers and 1 fighter get hit by German AA guns and fall, flaming to the ground. When they dropped their bombs, the ground shook and it sounded like thunder. News of the week. A boy in B Battery went insane and killed his sergeant and corporal. Enemy planes dropped bombs near us last night. August 1st, 1944, Tuesday. Today marks 1 year in the Army. 1 year too many. We are really moving ahead now. We don't even have time to dig in. People seem happy to see us. The Germans bomb us at night, but they don't dare come over in daylight. We are all dead tired from moving, digging a hole to sleep in for a couple of hours, and then moving again. We are at the point of an encircling drive and can hear machine guns and artillery on both sides of us. As tired as I feel, I'm ready to move any time because every move is just that much closer to home. Still no mail from Ruthie. Chapter 21, Asking Dad. Thursday, January 22nd, 1970, continued. I wonder why my father didn't just give up on my mother. I mean, here he is fighting the war and living in trenches, and she can't even write him a letter? And really, what's the point anyway of dreaming about a girl who's just going to grow up and be in a bad mood all the time? Maybe back before he left for the war, she was in a good mood all the time. Maybe whenever they were together, she acted like she does around here when there's a phone call. She could be yelling at us one second, and then the phone rings, and she's all nice to the person who's calling. Maybe she always treated Dad like a person on the phone until after she married him. Too bad he didn't know that when he was sleeping in a ditch. I'm lying in bed right now. It's 10 o'clock at night, and I just heard my parents' door open. After the whole family is asleep, my father likes to come out into the den and spend some time by himself. He'll have a snack or smoke a cigar and watch old war movies. I just may be a little hungry too. I'm gonna be right back. Later. Well, I went into the kitchen and I found my father with his head inside the fridge. I said, Dad? Huh? My father was startled. He emerged from the fridge with a piece of cheese in one hand and an English muffin in the other. What are you doing up? He asked. I was thirsty for orange juice, I said, as I went to the fridge and looked inside. I couldn't find any, so I just poured myself some water. You should really be in bed, my father said. Dad? Yes? Can I ask you something sort of important? His face changed from hungry to interested. Sure you can. What is it? Well, I was just wondering, what do you do when you feel like you did something wrong and you feel... My father was just staring at me, waiting for me to finish the sentence. You feel, guilty. What do you feel guilty about? It's hard to explain. I'm not going anywhere, my father said. He stared at me, and he stared at me for a very long time while I just stammered and stalled like an idiot. I didn't know why I'd come out there in the first place, and I didn't know how I was going to start to be able to tell him what was bothering me, but I had already said too much and I was stuck. I had to tell him something. I don't know how to say it. My father sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out a chair for me. Then I'm going to wait for you to figure it out, he said. Truly, that is what he said. We looked at each other, and we looked away, and looked at each other, and looked away for maybe an hour. I'm not kidding. That's how long we sat there before I found the courage to begin. And he just stayed right there with me. He never looked at his watch. He never ate his English muffin or his cheese. He just waited. Finally, I don't know how I did it, but I took a deep breath and I blurted out the entire story of Mrs. Baylor and the movie projector and how Mrs. Baylor almost cried and how I felt like a very bad person who should have helped her, but I didn't help her. And my father listened to everything without talking. And then he said this, Lanie, do you know how I know for certain that you are a very good person? No. Because you are feeling so bad right now. Oh, only a very good person would feel this bad, he said with half a smile and a little laugh. Good people make mistakes and then they learn from them. Well, what am I supposed to learn? I think you should figure that out for yourself. Now, it's time for you to go to sleep. Okay, Dad. I smiled at him, feeling much better and not even sure why. I think I have always known that my father believes I am a good person, but I never heard him say it before tonight. It was very good to hear him say it. Chapter 22, Trying to Fix It. Friday, January 23rd, 1970. On the bus this morning, I just sat still and pressed my head against the window. It's not exactly that I didn't want to talk to Lois, it's just that there was this thought percolating in my head, and I needed for it to roll around in there for a while. When we got to school, I told Lois I had to stop at the office. She asked why, and I said I would tell her later. Lois just shrugged and went off to class. In the office, I stood for a long time at the counter. The secretary, Mrs. Stanley, was trying to fix the mimeograph machine and getting pretty frustrated. She kept squeezing a little bottle of blue ink into a tiny hole, turning the big crank and pulling out pages of increasingly smeared copies. I tried clearing my throat and moving a pencil around. Finally, she looked up at me. May I help you? She asked. Yes, you may, I said. Mrs. Baylor left very suddenly. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, and I'm wondering if you have a phone number or an address where I could reach her. I had practiced the speech in my head on the bus. How about this, said Mrs. Stanley, wiping her blue hands on a stack of brown paper towels. Write your letter and bring it here. We'll mail it for you. Oh, okay, I'll do that, I said, and that is exactly what I plan to do. So, here's the letter I'm sending to Mrs. Baylor. January 23rd, 1970. Dear Mrs. Baylor, I am very sorry for the way in which my class treated you, especially since we made you quit. I never wanted that to happen. I am especially sorry that I didn't stop the projector. Even if I did not want to get made fun of, there is no excuse for how I behaved. Getting teased for helping you would have hurt, but not as much as your leaving. I hope you will forgive me. We miss you at school. Sincerely, Lanie Spurdle. That's what I wrote, and I hope it makes her feel better. But if it doesn't, I know that I meant what I said, and that is the best I can do. Later. Just now I went into the den to show the letter to my father. When he read it, he crinkled up his lips the way he does when something touches him. He looked up at me. I think that's a perfect letter, he said. You do, Dad? I sure do. If she's not thrilled to get this letter, then there's no helping her, is there? Maybe you could help her. Oh, you're doing just fine all by yourself. Now, go get some sleep. Tonight, I may finally be able to really do just that. August 4th, 1944. Definition of war is tired, filthy, sick, wounded, dead, suffering, shell-shocked, and homesick men. The fellow who said war is hell, he sure knew what he was talking about. No mail today. We moved up again. We were so tired that it took us 5 hours to dig the gun pit. The ground had rocks in it. No food for 24 hours. Frank and Huffins are sick. August 12th, 1944, Saturday. We shoot at planes every day. Last night, we had to stay on gun, even though we could not see the fire on them. When the planes first came over, it took all my willpower to get out of my slit trench and help man the gun. The bombs whistled down for what seemed like an eternity. The explosions shook the earth beneath us, and I prayed like I never did before. We stood this mental strain for over an hour. Knock on wood, nobody in this section got hurt. Baker was so shell-shocked that they had to take him to a hospital. August 22nd, 1944, Tuesday. Baker died. He had a wife and 2 kids. We moved up again. August 23rd, 1944, Wednesday. Hanf, our truck driver, halted someone last night. When the man did not stop, he sprayed the spot with his machine gun. It was too dark to see. The next morning, one of our men was found dead with 2 bullets in his head. August 24th, 1944, Thursday. Double Time Charlie, Lieutenant Lathrop, was killed by a truck. September 3rd, 1944, Sunday. We entered Belgium. People are more friendly than the French. September 5th, 1944, Tuesday. A woman we met asked Nick, Murphy, and myself over for dinner. She served us steak, potatoes, salad, and coffee. The woman's friend asked us to her house the following night, and we each had 4 pieces of pie. I received a copy of the Bennett High Beacon from Ruthie. Chapter 23, Never Simple. Friday, January 30th, 1970. Today I sat in English class watching the back of Clayton Murray's head and hoping he will never have to go off to war. One thing I know for sure, though, is that if he ever does go, I will write him a letter every day. He will not have to sleep in a ditch wondering why I haven't written. That is, of course, providing he wants to get letters from me. Maybe he wouldn't even read them if I wrote to him. But no, when you sleep in a ditch, you probably read mail from everyone. And anyway, Clayton and I are getting to be pretty good friends. We talk sometimes about Huckleberry Finn. Once we talked about Peter Haskell because Clayton and I both think he's very immature. We have never again talked about underwear, but still, it's silently understood that we once talked about underwear, and that is not the kind of thing a person forgets. At least not me, anyway. Mr. Bruner asked the class today, what do you think led Huck to help Jim escape? Huck knows that this could ruin his reputation. Clayton raised his hand. It makes me happy when Clayton raises his hand. He never does it just to show off. He always has something interesting to say. Today, Clayton said, because Jim is the most family Huck has ever had. That's right, Clayton, Mr. Bruner said. Jim had become Huck's family, and although Huck is breaking the law of the land, he is keeping the law of his own conscience. Can anyone draw a parallel for me between the American South in the 19th century and Nazi Germany during this century? Well, here was something I know about very well, so I raised my hand. Mr. Bruner called on me, and I said, in Germany, you were breaking the law if you helped a Jew. Very good, Lanie. Cindy Finderbean made a stupid face, but I pretended not to see it. Now let me leave you people with a question to ponder, Mr. Bruner said. What would you do if you were Huck, or if you were a German citizen during World War II and somebody needed your help? Would you choose your safety and the law of the land, or would you choose your conscience? I'll see you tomorrow. The class was over and people were moving toward the door. I just sat there thinking about the question. Maureen walked over. Earlier this week, she asked if I could go with her this weekend to her uncle's slideshow party. Apparently, he just got back from Greece. I told her I had to ask my parents, and I haven't yet. Maureen stood by my desk. It always bugs me when she does that. Then she said, "That's a tough one, isn't it, Lanie?" I was worried she was going to ask me again about the slideshow party. Oh, Mr. Bruner's question? I looked behind Maureen to see where Clayton was going. He was picking up his things and heading towards us. Yes, it's a tough one, all right, don't you think so, Lanie? Maureen asked again. Now, why would the nicest girl in the world think that that was a difficult question? Looking up at Clayton, I said, "No, not really. I would help the person." "Are you sure?" Clayton asked. "Well, it's the right thing to do, isn't it?" "It seems that way on the surface," Clayton said, "but what if you had a sick baby at home and that baby needed you, and if you got caught and got killed, no one would take care of your baby and the baby would die?" I looked at Clayton and I looked again over at Maureen. She was smiling and nodding as she clutched her books to her chest. "Why are you so smart?" I asked Clayton. Clayton just laughed. My mom likes to discuss these sorts of things with me. She says life is never as simple as just right and wrong. I collected my books, thinking deeply about what Clayton had just said. "It never is?" I asked him. "Nope, never." "Then how are we supposed to figure out what to do?" "Well, some stuff is easy," Clayton said, like, "I know it's wrong for me to be late for science. Haha, see ya." He waved and hurried out of the room. I was taking my time because my next class is study hall and nobody really notices if you're late for that. I didn't remember that Maureen was still there. She scared me when she said, "So?" "What?" I said. "You like him, don't you?" That really bugged me, and I'm sure I was turning red as I hurried off to study hall. While I was walking, my mind was racing with what Clayton had just said about right and wrong. I was getting very confused. For example, it's probably wrong to be reading my father's journal, but I've convinced myself that it's right. And what if it was right for my mother to take my drumsticks, but I've convinced myself that it was wrong? Just when I felt completely mixed up, I heard my name coming out of the school's PA speakers. "Lanie Spurdle, please come to the main office. Lanie Spurdle, please come to the main office." Why do they always have to repeat announcements? It's not fun when it's your own name. I was flabbergasted, vocabulary word. Why would I be getting called to the office? I was freaking out inside as I walked quickly down the hall, and then it hit me. And I wasn't scared any longer. I knew what it would be, and I was right. It did not surprise me at all when the office secretary, Mrs. Stanley, handed me a letter from Mrs. Baylor. "Thank you," I said, as I took the letter and turned to walk away. "Aren't you going to open it?" asked Mrs. Stanley, who was clearly being nosy. "I will later," I told her. "I'm late for study hall." I took the letter, and I tucked it carefully into the zipper compartment of my notebook. This is between Mrs. Baylor and me. The only other person I'm going to show this letter to is my father. Chapter 24, Wise Choices. Saturday, January 31st, 1970. Dad never came out into the den last night. It was Friday, and my parents went to a dinner party. Today is Saturday. Maureen called me this morning to remind me about her uncle's slideshow party, so I finally told her I couldn't make it. I went over to Lois's and walked to the plaza and bought the new 16 magazine with the cow sills on the cover. Whoo! Then we went back to her house. Her mother made hamburgers for dinner. Lois has an older sister named Marcia who has very sophisticated taste in music. We spent the entire night listening to her Barbra Streisand and Jack Jones records. In my opinion, Jack Jones is a better singer and way better looking than Frank Sinatra. I'm back at home now. Tomorrow is Sunday school, which I hate. Please note the capital letters. I usually bring a book with me, which I place inside my boring History of Judaic Culture book, and I secretly read to myself for the entire 3 hours. Right now I'm reading We Were There on the Oregon Trail by William O. Steele. It's about 2 children who are traveling by wagon train to Oregon with their parents. Far more exciting than Why We Eat Matzah. Here's the good news about having a mother who sleeps a lot. Sometimes she oversleeps on Sunday mornings, and even if I'm already up, I'll pretend I'm still asleep. If she oversleeps, we don't have to go to Sunday school. Woohoo! Have I mentioned that I hate Sunday school? I know I'm rambling, but I am waiting and listening for my father to come out into the kitchen, and I am thinking while I write. I don't want life to be as complicated as Clayton says it is. How will we ever do anything if we're always wondering if it's right or wrong? More examples. Lois, Tracy, and Denise are all joining the swim team just because Mr. Helfenstein is so handsome. Is that right? Oh, and I forgot to tell you, Lois got one look at him and she nearly fainted. Then there's me. I'm going to be trying out for the school musical. I want to be a good actress and a singer, and I want to have people come and see me and tell me I'm good. That makes me sound pretty self-centered, doesn't it? Also, Clayton says he's trying out, and that makes me sound pretty boy crazy, doesn't it? Now I'm starting to wonder if we ever do things for the right reasons. When I got the letter from Mrs. Baylor today, I felt so happy, but maybe I didn't care about her as much as I cared about making myself feel less guilty. I still haven't read it. I'm waiting for Dad to come out of his room. September 11th, 1944, Monday. We moved into a new position 1 mile from the German border. People here speak German, but claim that they don't like Germany. September 18th, 1944, Monday. A Jeep picked me up to take me to Jewish services across the border in a German town called Karnelmünster. The service was held in a castle, and I will never forget it. This was the first Jewish service not held in secrecy since Hitler came into power in Germany. A soldier was singing the prayer, Amida, when 4 enemy planes came over. The noise of our anti-aircraft guns was terrific, and the soldier stood and sang the prayer. No one was hurt. Now when I think back, our services were beautiful at home. I understand now why my parents enjoyed sitting together with the whole family in temple. We had no chauffeur to listen to, but a 155 long tom, which kept up a continual blasting of enemy positions. September 21st, 1944, Thursday. We moved up into Germany. White flags hung from most houses. We shot a cow and will have steak for supper. The noise of our artillery is enough to drive a man crazy. I'm glad I'm not on the receiving end. We don't trust the people here, even though some act friendly. October 2nd, 1944, Monday. In the past 11 days, it has rained every day except one, and it is very cold and windy, and we're pretty miserable. We killed another cow. At present, I feel very discouraged because the paper talks about a 2-year war with Japan. It's still raining. God damn the people responsible for starting this lousy war. Chapter 25, Mrs. Baylor's Letter. Saturday, later. Okay, here's what happened. I heard my dad coming down the hall, so I jumped up, grabbed the letter, and went to talk with him. By now, he's getting used to our nighttime meetings. Hi, sweetie, he said. Hi, Dad, guess what? What? I smiled, and I handed him the letter. Read it, I said. He took it and looked at it, turning it over. He noticed I hadn't yet opened it, and he handed it back to me. You read it, he said. So I sat down at the kitchen table, opened the envelope, and removed the letter. I read it out loud, and this is what it says. Dear Lanie, thank you for your thoughtful note. Yes, the children in your class are a handful, and I am afraid I am past the age where I am able or willing to handle them. Don't feel as though this is your fault. I had many good years of teaching. This year was not one of them, so you can imagine how much it touched me to receive your letter. I accept your apology, Lanie. Now be good to your new teacher, your friend, Mrs. Baylor. I looked over at my father. He was smiling. I smiled with him and took a deep breath. That's a nice letter, Lanie, he said. Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it? I folded the letter and put it back into the envelope. It sounds like you made her happy, he said. Dad? Yes? Do you always know how to do the right thing? My father seemed puzzled by the question. What do you mean? Well, my friend Clayton Murray says life is more complicated than just right and wrong. Dad smiled almost to himself. He sounds like a very wise boy. Oh, he is. And he's right. Sometimes life can be very complicated. So then how do you know what to do? Well, I don't always know, but, and this is a very important but, if I make a mistake, I try to fix it. I looked very hard at my father, like I just tried to do with Mrs. Baylor, exactly like you just did with Mrs. Baylor. Are there ever things that you need to fix, Dad? As a matter of fact, there's something that I am trying to fix right now. I was a little confused. I started to ask him what it was, but I noticed the look on his face. What I saw on my father's face was something soft and loving. That's how I knew what he meant. I said, oh, and then I smiled at him. You see, I think he was fixing something with our conversations. So I took a deep breath and I took a big risk. I reached out and I hugged my father. It took him a moment, but he hugged me back. Well, sort of. It was 2 awkward pats on my back. I'll take it. Sunday, February 1st, 1970. It's 10 a.m. on Sunday, and after reading what my father wrote in his journal about the Jewish service in Germany, I was almost hoping that my mother would not oversleep, but she did. We're missing Sunday school right now. I'm in my room listening to the Association on my record player and trying to learn all the words to Along Comes Mary.
Chapter 26, The Musical. Monday, February 2nd, 1970. I tried out for the musical today, which is Bye Bye Birdie. Clayton Murray tried out too. He was so good. He sang All My Lovin' by the Beatles, which is not that easy a song to sing if you think about it, and his voice is excellent. Plus, he has so much confidence. I'm sure he'll get a part. I, on the other hand, well, I can sing and harmonize beautifully when I am alone in my room learning from the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and the Bee Gees, located conveniently near each other in the record bins. Oh, I am as musical as any cowsill in my own mind and in my own room. But here is the reality of what happened in public at the audition. The director of the play, Miss Gallistorfer, asked me to pick a song from her list, and I picked This Guy's in Love with You. It's one of my favorites. The great Burt Bacharach wrote it. In fact, it's the first record I ever bought with my very own money. But when I started to sing, you see this guy's in love with you. Stupid Gretchen calls out, "That's right, she's a guy, and now she's in love with me." I know she was trying to hurt my feelings, but it was so funny I started laughing and then everyone else started laughing. Miss Gallistorfer kept asking me to take it from the top, and finally she just gave up. I will say this though, I sang it better than Herb Albert does. He should stick to the trumpet. Chapter 27, The Mayor's Wife. Wednesday, February 4th, 1970. After school, Lois, Tracy, and I were heading down the hallway toward the pool in a deep state of giggle. They were all going to sign up for the swim club and were super excited at the prospect of seeing Mr. Helfenstein in his swim trunks. They kept trying to talk me into coming with them, but I am not joining the swim club. Denise said I should come in and sign up and then change my mind just so I can catch a look. Lois said it was more honest to say I'm getting a ride with them. That sounded reasonable. I was heading with them into the locker room when I saw Clayton Murray running down the hall toward us. "Guess what?" he said, catching his breath. "Miss Gallistorfer just posted the roles for Bye Bye Birdie. Come on!" With that, he grabbed me by the arm and together we ran off to the music room. "I'll meet you guys in the pool," I called back at my friends, and away we dashed, laughing and running. "I hope I get the Dick Van Dyke role," Clayton said. "That's the part I really want. What do you want?" Maybe the Anne Margaret part, or no, Rosie. Then I'd get to sing Put on a Happy Face. It's not that easy to talk and run, so we were also doing a lot of gasping and laughing. Mr. Carl, our former 6th grade teacher, stuck his head out a classroom door and said, "Walk, people." So Clayton and I did a very advanced version of the rapid run walk all the way to the music room alcove. When we rounded the corner, we could see kids gathered around a sheet of paper taped to the wall, so we walked right into the group and edged our way to the list. Clayton slid his finger along the names and stopped at Clayton Murray. Hugo Peabody. "Wow, that's a gigantic part," I said. "In the movie, that's Bobby Rydell, Anne Margaret's boyfriend." "Gosh," Clayton said as his finger continued down the list, looking for my name. Finally, he found it. Lanie Spurdle, Mayor's Wife. "What's that?" I asked. "I don't know," Clayton said, "but you got a part." "I don't even have a name. I'm just somebody's wife," we both giggled. Clayton said. "You were really good at the audition." "Oh, come on, I was not." "I thought you were good, and I also think you should graciously accept my compliment." Smiling, we looked at each other. That's when I saw Maureen going up and down the list with her eyes. She turned towards us and shrugged her shoulders. "Oh, well." "What happened?" I asked her. "I got stage crew." "Well, that's something," Clayton said. "Everyone who doesn't get a part gets stage crew," she said with a sigh. It was my happy, joyous sharing moment with Clayton Murray, and she was ruining it. I know that sounds mean and selfish, but that was the way I felt. I have not yet told Mom that I got a part in the play. She's been in a very bad mood lately. In fact, yesterday she wouldn't even pretend she was in a good mood on the phone. She just told me to tell Aunt Jerry she was sleeping. And then today Kurt came into my room because he was scared. That's been happening a lot lately. He gets worried that Mom is going to yell at him or that she'll never come out of her room. I don't mind it when Kurt comes in here. We listen to the Supremes on my record player, and he makes me laugh because he knows all the moves to Stop in the Name of Love. Oh, and after I found out about the mayor's wife, I went to the swim team signups with Tracy, Denise, and Lois. We were all disappointed. Mr. Helfenstein was not wearing swim trunks. He had on a warm-up suit, but you could see some of his chest hair, and I still think he's very, very handsome. Just not as handsome as Clayton Murray. October 16th, 1944, Monday. The sun had just gone down last night when enemy planes came over. We were on the gun, but could not see them. Suddenly, bright flares filled the sky. We saw 4 red flares shoot downward and then fade out. Then it happened. Near us, a large area lit up by what looked like thousands of explosions about 40 feet off the ground. I never saw or heard anything like it. We could hear screaming. And this morning, we found out that 30 men were killed or wounded. I don't like the looks of this new business. October 25th, 1944, Wednesday. I got a letter from Ruthie. We play ball every day. I play first base. I had a double and a single today. Shells have been coming in every night. We have to man the guns all night now. November 2nd, 1944, Thursday. Last night, I was on the gun between 10 and 12 when a plane came over our heads. It dropped those anti-personnel bombs and killed Edwards, who was fixing the field phone wire. November 8th, 1944, Wednesday. Roosevelt reelected. Everyone in this section is satisfied. We had our first snow. It looks like a miserable winter ahead. No mail from home for a week. November 10th, 1944, Friday. I had a fight with Salvati. He called me a Jew rat and said it was our fault America was in this stupid war. I got pretty steamed and told him to shut his mouth, and he took a swing at me. At first I thought I was in for a beating, but I soon found out that he couldn't fight worth a darn. It lasted about 25 minutes. At the start, I cut his nose open so that it bled from the inside and out. He got wild mad and rushed and knocked me off balance and caused me to slip and fall into the mud. This burned me up, and I landed a solid left on his mouth. He was then bleeding from his mouth and nose. I began to feel sorry for him, and I slackened up. He then landed a solid one on my cheek, and, although he doesn't know it, I still can't chew enough to eat bread. I got sick of fooling around with him, and I messed him up pretty bad. The sergeant broke up the fight. The fellows told me that I should have beat him up bad, but it would have been too easy. November 11th, 1944, Saturday. My face aches a bit, but Salvati is really swollen. Well, he asked for it. I have never yet started a fight. Chapter 28, Mom's Mystery. Thursday, February 5th, 1970. I was in the den with Kurt watching an I Love Lucy rerun when our mother came home with groceries. It was one of the episodes where little Ricky plays the drums. I love those episodes because A, his parents encourage him to play the drums, and B, that little kid was an amazing drummer. But when Mom comes home with groceries, if you don't go outside to help her, you get yelled at. So Kurt and I went and got our shoes on. If you go outside without your shoes on, you get yelled at. We helped Mom bring in the groceries, and then we helped her put them away. I really hate that part. I don't know where everything is supposed to go, and if you put something in the wrong spot, you get yelled at. As we were helping Mom unpack the groceries, we were looking at her to assess her mood. That's how we gauge the rest of our day. Also, I really did want to tell her about my part in the play. If she isn't talking, that's a bad sign, and she wasn't talking. But if I wait too long to tell her something important, I might get yelled at. So I took a chance. I said, "Mom?" She said, "I got a part in the play." "That's nice." That was it. She said nothing after that. I looked at Kurt like, "What?" He shrugged, and then the brave little guy piped in with, "Can we go watch Lanie in the play?" My mom said, "We'll see." Well, you wouldn't need much experience in this house to learn that "we'll see" means no. What the heck? She didn't say, "Good for you, Lanie." She didn't say, "We're proud of you." She didn't say, "What play?" For gosh sake, I was getting irritated. My brother is coming to this play even if I have to carry him in my gym bag. I said, "Mom, you guys are planning to see the play, right?" She seemed startled. She suddenly stopped unpacking groceries and she just looked at me. "To the what?" she asked. That's when I lost it. "I got a part in the musical, Mom. It's Bye Bye Birdie, and I'm playing the mayor's wife. I hope you bring Kurt to see me in it, even if you just drop us off and pick us up because Kurt is interested in my life." With that, I slammed down a can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup and ran out of the kitchen and into my room. I sprawled on my bed waiting for the storm that would surely follow. I waited and I waited. Then there was a soft knock at my door and my mother cracked it open before I could respond. She stood there and said, "I'm glad you got a part in the play, Lanie." Then she walked in and sat with me on the side of my bed without even asking if she could. I didn't move away or anything. I just lay there. "Of course we'll be there," she said. "You know we'll all be there and we'll be so very proud of you." I still didn't say anything. It was all just so embarrassing. Finally, she got up and left the room. I breathed a very deep sigh of relief, and then I cried for a little while. Chapter 29, Why She's Sad. I love my big sister Annie, but we have nothing in common.
That's what everyone says anyway. I'm always hearing, wow, you're Annie's sister? Really? As if they can't imagine how we managed to crawl out of the same gene pool. Then they say, it's just that you and your sister are so different. That's what I hear anyway. What they mean is, Annie is so pretty and smart and popular, and you're so different. We were only 1.5 years apart in age, but she barely ever talks to me. I stopped trying to follow her around when she was 7 and I was maybe 5. I got tired of being told to get lost, so we live in the same house, in different worlds. But tonight, I was in the bathroom and Annie knocked on the door. Nothing unusual there. All 3 of us kids share a bathroom. There's a lot of door knocking that goes on. I was just brushing my teeth, so I said, come in, and then I spat. Annie walked into the bathroom and stood there looking at me as if to say, okay, I'm in here now, so when are you leaving? She didn't have to say it. By now, I know what she means when she doesn't talk because she usually doesn't talk. I spat again, turned off the water, and moved away from the sink. Just then, we heard our mother's feet stomping down the hallway, followed by the slamming of her door. And then before I knew exactly what was coming out of my mouth, I heard myself asking, why is Mom always in a bad mood? Annie didn't seem shocked by the question. Even though the 2 of us have never discussed this issue, or for that matter, any issue before, Annie shrugged. I don't know, she said, but I know she has a psychiatrist. Annie started washing her face. A what? I asked. I was thinking, my gosh, if Annie has this kind of information, I should talk to her more often. A psychiatrist, you know, Dr. Lindsay, who calls here all the time? Yeah? That's her psychiatrist. It's a doctor for people who feel bad a lot. How do you know? I hear Mom and Dad talking. Their room is right next to mine, you know. Oh, I said. How come you never told me? You were just a kid, Annie said. Then she dried her face and went to bed. I can't sleep. I really want to ask Dad about this, but what if he gets mad because I know? I thought you had to be pretty nutty to need a psychiatrist. In fact, the reason I know that psychiatrist starts with a P is because Ricky Ricardo screams at Lucy that she's making him so crazy he'll have to go see a psychiatrist. Is our mother crazy? Have we made her crazy? Friday, February 6, 1970. I heard my dad come out of his room and I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep again unless I talked with him. So I got out of bed. I was terrified he would be furious that I know the truth about making our mom go crazy, but I had to ask. I have to know. Then I can just cry and apologize and try to do better. I walked into the kitchen. It was all weighing on me so heavily that almost before my father said hello, the question popped out of me. Dad, does Mom go to a psychiatrist? He didn't seem mad at all. He didn't even seem startled, just thoughtful. He sat down at the table and he said, yes. So I sat there with him and I didn't say anything. Neither did he. Finally, I asked, is it because she's crazy? No, my father said, it's because she's sad. Oh boy, I had to keep going. Why is she sad? I asked. I braced myself for the horrible answer, but my father said, I've gone to the psychiatrist myself when I was sad. Why were you sad? I asked. This was going from bad to worse. My heart was pounding and pounding. We were ruining our parents' lives. I was convinced of it. He paused for a very long time and then he said, I was sad because of some things I saw during the war. Uh-oh, some things I'm not supposed to know about that will make me as sad as he is when I get to them in the journal. I've already ruined their lives and now I'm bound and determined to ruin my own. What is wrong with me? Well, that's what I was thinking, but all I said was, did the psychiatrist help you? Yes, some, but a lot of the work I have to do by myself, it's a process. Is this where you tell me that I'll understand it better when I'm older? My father chuckled softly. Yes, exactly. You are a wise one, aren't you? My father being impressed with me will always momentarily suppress my terror. But finally I took a deep breath and I spoke. Why is Mom always in a bad mood? I don't know. Was she always? No. Are you kidding? Your mother she is the funniest, most loving, happy person. He didn't finish the sentence because it was taking his thoughts too far away. Then what happened? The pause was way too long. I was just dreading what he would say. I knew the answer, and I couldn't bear to hear it. He looked away from me and across the room, and he spoke as if he were figuring all of this out for himself for the first time. All she ever wanted was to be a mother, he said. She was so happy with you kids. She was over the moon with Annie, and then you, and then Kurt, and then I waited. And then what? What did I do? My father just looked at me as if I had said the world's most ridiculous thing. What did you do? You didn't do anything except be adorable. I must have done something. Oh, sweetie, no. Is that what you've been going around thinking? No. He looked at me very hard. Do you understand me? No. I nodded. You know, he thought very hard. I work late. I work a lot. She gets frustrated with us. It's more complicated than that, sweetie. Do you remember when Grandma Kate died? How old were you, 6? Yes, I remember how quiet the house was. Mom went into her room and you told us, but I didn't understand. Well, your mother had a very close bond with her mother, and when Grandma Kate died, your mother went into a sort of depression. Oh. And that is what we are working on. We are, and it has nothing to do with you. Are you sure? I can be a big pain, I smiled slightly. He just shook his head. So that's what he told me, but I'm not at all sure it's completely true. After all, Grandma Kate died 6 years ago. How long does a person need to stay so sad? He said that Mom really wanted us when we were babies. Sure, but now that she knows us better, she can't stand us. I still think it's our fault that she's sad. However, it does make me feel better that Dad wouldn't tell me that. He told me something else, and I'm going to try very hard to believe it. Chapter 30, Who Likes Who? Monday, February 9th, 1970. Rehearsals for Bye Bye Birdie take place every day after school, and I love them. This play is about a teen idol who comes to do a special performance in a very small town. I play the wife of the mayor of that very small town. I don't have any actual lines, but I do have a pivotal role. Here's why. I am standing by the mayor's side as Conrad Birdie, the teen idol, begins to sing in the town square. I go crazy for him. I start screaming and fainting, and pretty soon the entire town is screaming and fainting for him. So you see, I am quite the trendsetter in this play. Plus, I get to sing and dance in all of the town scenes, and I get to be a part of it all, which is just the best. Then there's our director, Miss Gallistorfer. How do I describe her? She's 50 years old, and she wears love beads and miniskirts, and she likes to very dramatically overact out everyone's part so we know how to do it. She is a hoot. For example, Miss Gallistorfer showed me how the mayor's wife begins her big scene in a prim and proper manner. She does not want to swoon over Conrad Birdie. She thinks the whole thing is silly. Then she gets a look at him, sort of like Lois and Mr. Helfenstein. Shh. And she goes into conniptions. Miss Gallistorfer showed me some stage business I can do, like fanning myself and putting my hand up to my forehead and fainting into the mayor's arms. When she acted out that part, Dominic Flunk got hit in the face with her love beads, and it was pretty funny. Being the mayor's wife is going to be really neat after all. Dominic plays the mayor. He is a very nice boy. The problem is that he has a crush on me. I'm not saying that to be conceited. He really does, I can tell. He enjoys portraying my husband just a little too much, but we are not married. This is just a play after all. At least that's what I keep telling myself every time I have to look over and see Clayton Murray as Hugo Peabody acting out his scenes with Gretchen Alder as Kim McAfee. There, I said it. Yes, they play boyfriend and girlfriend in this musical. Can you believe it? Now, I know that Clayton is a sensible boy, and I know that Gretchen is an idiotic girl, so naturally I am assuming that sensible Clayton has no interest in idiotic Gretchen. The problem is that Gretchen is also sort of, well, beautiful, as much as it hurts me to write that. And sometimes I see the way he looks at her. She's gorgeous, she's popular, she's a cheerleader, and they have songs together and lovey-dovey scenes together, and it's pretty clear to me that he is enjoying them. She's mean, she's nasty, she's stupid, she has no redeeming qualities. Therefore, I can see with my very own eyes what it means to be pretty, and it is extremely discouraging. Attention all grown-ups who have ever said, it's what's on the inside that counts. You really need to see the way Clayton Murray looks at Gretchen Alder. After rehearsal, I usually meet up with Lois and we walk home. Lois, by now, in case you haven't guessed from my earlier snide remark, is completely in love with Mr. Helfenstein. Yes, she knows that he is a 31-year-old married man. Lois's plan is to grow up and become his second wife. Could you barf? So today we were walking and talking, and I'm really not sure what came over me, but all of a sudden, while Lois was taking a breath in between sentences about Mr. Helfenstein, I just blurted out, I like Clayton Murray. Do you know what she said? She said, I know, he likes you too. I gasped. My heart was fluttering around in my chest, and then Lois said, and he also likes Gretchen Alder. Honestly, it took a moment for those words to sink into my head, but when they did, I had to stop walking. I looked at Lois and I said, what do you mean? She shrugged. I guess he likes both of you. How do you know all this, and why didn't you tell me about it? Well, first of all, You never told me you liked him, so I didn't think you wanted to talk about it. And secondly, during assembly, I heard him talking to Dominic Flunt. Dominic was telling Clayton that he likes you, but he thinks that you like Clayton. And that's when Clayton said that he does like you too, but he also likes Gretchen because she's so pretty. Oh. Well, now I was feeling dizzy and I had to sit down on the curb. Are you okay, Lois asked. I don't know. Usually when people ask if you're okay, you just say yes, even if you have stubbed your toe or skinned your knee, but this time, I really was not okay, and I asked Lois to walk home without me. She didn't want to leave me alone, but she finally did. I sat there for another hour or so, maybe longer. November 23rd, 1944, Thursday. Today is Thanksgiving, and we had a swell turkey dinner. I guess I have a lot to be thankful for. I can't help but think of home, though. Everything back there seems like a dream. I guess I'll be the most happy and contented man in the world when I get back. Chapter 31, Annie's Advice. Monday, February 9th, continued. How can I possibly feel so horrible about my life when I am home, on my own bed, in my own room, in our warm house? There are no bombs falling on me. I'm not sleeping in the snow. Nobody's trying to kill me. I am safe and healthy. But I just can't help it. I feel awful, which really makes me a truly rotten person who doesn't appreciate the good things I have. And that's why I need to put this pen down. I'm starting to cry. Wow, just now while I was busy sobbing, Annie pounded on my door, stuck her head in and asked, "Why are you crying?" Annie likes to get right to the point. I slipped Dad's journal under my pillow and wiped my nose. "I just am," I said. "You're going to have to do better than that or I can't help you." "Okay, but if I tell you, it's top secret." Annie crossed her heart. "I like a boy." "Yeah?" "Who likes me, but also likes another girl who's really pretty." Annie absorbed all of this for a second, and then she said, "Look, I hate to break it to you, but you are only 12. This is nothing compared to what's coming." I took a quick breath that sounded more like a gasp, but Annie kept talking. "He's going to like a lot of girls, you're going to like a lot of boys, and on it will go for a while until everybody's married, so you may as well stop crying, pick yourself up, and get started." And with that, Annie turned and left the room. And I did stop crying, but mostly because now I'm more scared than sad. December 3rd, 1944, Sunday. What a day. The Germans finally broke out. 90 planes came over, and we opened up for dear life. They came over at very low altitude and tried to bomb the bridge, but they missed. We knocked down 5 of them. In one, the pilot tried to bail out, but his chute didn't open. One of our boys got hit by a 50 in the shoulder, but he's okay. I was sitting in a gun pit with Frank the other day when a bigger shell than usual fell nearby and a piece of shrapnel bounced off Frank's helmet. He turned so white that I couldn't help but laugh. December 25th, 1944, Monday. We are in Belgium and living in holes. It's very cold, and we are all nearly frozen. It's hard to believe this is Christmas. I wonder every day if I'll ever be warm again. Chapter 32, Pretty Girls. Monday, February 9th, continued. I fell asleep with Dad's journal on top of me. Maybe I was trying to keep it warm. It's 11 p.m., and the TV in the den is on. I can hear John Wayne's voice and a bugle. I think the cavalry may be involved. I'm going in. Later. I walked into the den. My father looked at me. "What's up, sweetie?" he asked as he turned down the volume on the television. John Wayne was silently leading a beautiful woman across a desert on horseback. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Do boys only like girls who are pretty?" My dad smiled to himself and shook his head. "I don't know. I've seen a lot of homely couples at the mall." He laughed a little, but when he saw the expression on my face, he became serious. "Who told you this?" "It's not what anyone told me. It's what I see." "Is there a boy you're thinking about?" "Whoa, danger, Lanie Spurdle." The longer I paused, the more he knew that of course there was a boy involved, but that didn't mean that I had to talk about it. I just looked at him and shrugged. My father nodded. He thought for a few moments, and then this is what he said to me. "I'm going to be very honest with you." "Okay," I braced for it. "Boys and men will always look at a pretty girl or a pretty lady, but..." He was sorting through his head for the right way to put this. I was staring at a vase behind him that Amy had made at Camp White Pine. I was afraid he might never continue, but then he did. "Pretty women are like a flashing neon sign outside a store. It makes you look. You may want to go into that store. So let's suppose you go in and you look around. If there is nothing inside that store but worthless junk, you won't stay very long, will you?" He relaxed, completely satisfied with the analogy. I don't know, I said. Some men stay, don't they? I thought I had thrown him, but he said, yes, some men do stay. But I think they are men who don't have very much inside their store either. Wow, that was good, I smiled at him. Not just because what he had said to me was so reassuring, but because we both understood how smart and how true it was. And then he really topped himself. And what the heck makes you think that you're not pretty, he asked. I'm not as pretty as Gretchen Alder. This seemed to really get under his skin. He reached for my hand and pulled me closer to him. Lanie, I don't know Gretchen Alder, I don't know all the girls at your school, and I don't know all the girls in the world, but I can promise you this. He got very serious. There will always be someone prettier than you, someone smarter than you, someone funnier than you. I giggled. No, he smiled for a moment and then tried to focus me. Lanie, look at me. This was making me feel embarrassed. I looked at him, trying not to giggle. Thank you. This is important. Okay? Promise me that you will not waste your life comparing yourself to other people. I promise. There is plenty of room in this world for everyone to be amazing. Other people's greatness, success, beauty, talent, achievements, they take nothing away from you. They only enrich you. Do you understand? I do, Dad. Then he got very soft around the eyes. He put his hands on my shoulders. You are a spectacular person. I couldn't help it. My eyes filled up with tears and I had to look away from him because he was crying a little bit too. Before we both really started bawling, I blurted out, You are too, Dad. And I came back here to bed. What a night, huh? Chapter 33, About Ralph. Saturday, February 14th, 1970. It's Valentine's Day, and I must confess that I have never liked this holiday. I know it's supposed to be a celebration of love, but it always feels like a day designed to taunt us about the love we don't have. So Mom and Dad went out with Herman and Polly, and Lois came over. She and Kurt and I watched a movie on TV called I'd Rather Be Rich, starring Andy Williams, Robert Goulet, and Sandra Dee. And it made me feel better. Just the fact that Sandra Dee picks Robert Goulet over Andy Williams is excellent proof that love is a very peculiar and personal matter. The house is quiet now, and Valentine's Day is over. Hooray. February 10th, 1945, Saturday. We are sleeping in a farmhouse about 100 yards from the gun pit. Last night I stood guard with Ralph between 2 and 4 a.m., and I bawled him out for not covering his cigarette good enough. We have a dugout adjoining the pit, which we stay in when it rains. This morning, I went on guard with Joe, Bachman, and Howard. At 12:30 p.m., Frank, Ralph, Hanf, and Blosser relieved us. I went up to the house, ate lunch, and lay down. An hour later, shells began coming in. A shell landed near the pit. Then another shell came over. I saw Frank running towards the house, and Hanf was close behind him, yelling, I'm hit! Blood was running off his leg, and his raincoat was full of holes. Frank called up for a medic, who came out with the captain. Blosser was also in the pit. When he came out, I asked him, Where is Ralph? Ralph is dead, he answered. The whole story is Ralph caught a piece of shrapnel through his neck and head. He was killed outright. Saturday, February 14th continued. Ralph was somebody's son, maybe somebody's brother, somebody's boyfriend or husband. He could have been somebody's father. I'm only here now because this happened to Ralph instead of to my father. Is it luck or fate? I guess people have been asking that question for centuries, and as long as we keep asking that, we also need to ask this. Why do we fight wars? For territory, for religion, for power, for freedom? There are lots of reasons to fight. Isn't there a much bigger reason to stop? Who started this war? Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Churchill? Who fought this war? My father, Blosser, Frank, Ralph. Men start wars, and boys fight them. I think that's wrong. Chapter 34, The Explosion. Monday, February 16th, 1970. During lunch today, I saw Clayton Murray and Gretchen Alder going over their lines together. I wonder how long it's going to take Clayton to realize that there is nothing in her store. He sure seems to be doing a lot of browsing. Maureen walked by with her tray while Peter Haskell and his idiot friends oinked at her. She pretended she didn't hear, like always. But today, she glanced over at my table a little too long. I think the girl she usually sits with, Alice Slater, was absent today. I looked back at Clayton and Gretchen, and I put my spoon down. It was pudding day, and I wasn't even interested. Lois noticed me staring at the two of them. Look, she said, I told you he likes you, didn't I? That doesn't make it much easier to watch them. Then don't look, Lois said. You don't see me going over to Mr. Helfenstein's house to watch him kiss his wife, do you? No, because you would probably get arrested. Lois suddenly became anxious. Do you think he kisses his wife? She asked. Suddenly I just snapped. No, I'm sure he hires someone to kiss his wife for him because all he can think about all day is you. Okay, I know that sounds really awful, and the reason it sounds really awful is because it is really awful. I'm sorry, but I had just had it with her ridiculous fixation on our married teacher. Lois looked like she was about to cry. Why are you being so mean? She asked. Because I think your insane crush on Mr. Helfenstein is so stupid I could retch. With that, I got up, took my tray back, and stormed out of the cafeteria. I guess I just started a war. I am truly a horrible and insensitive friend. Even worse, I'm turning into my mother. Lois is my very best friend, and I yelled at her for no reason. I did this, and I don't know why I did it, and I sure as heck better figure out how to fix it. Chapter 35. No Apologizing. Tuesday, February 17th, 1970. This morning at the bus stop, Lois wouldn't even talk to me. I tried to apologize. Shut up, she said, and she walked away. All day she wouldn't talk to me. On the bus ride home, she wouldn't talk to me. And when we got off the bus, she still wouldn't talk to me. If you won't even let me apologize, I began, then you're not really my friend, are you? She wouldn't answer or even turn around. She just kept walking. Wednesday, February 18th, 1970. Lois still won't talk to me. Thursday, February 19th, 1970. Lois still won't talk to me. Friday, February 20th, 1970. The weekend is coming, and still, Lois won't talk to me. I can't even remember a weekend without Lois. We always do something together. We go to the movies, or the mall, or the plaza, or we go over to each other's houses and listen to records and look at teen magazines. The new Tiger Beat comes out today, and last month's issue promised a Barry Cowsill pinup. Lois loves Barry Cowsill. A new Tiger Beat is no fun without Lois. Maureen wanted to make plans with me for this weekend. She knows that Lois and I are not speaking, and she was trying to make me feel better, and I told her that my father needs me at his work. He doesn't really, but I think I may need him. Saturday, February 21st, 1970. It's Saturday morning. I woke up and remembered that Lois and I are not best friends any longer. My father works on Saturdays because he makes and sells ladies' coats, and ladies like to buy coats on Saturdays. When I was little, I used to go with him to work if my mother had something to do. Annie still goes with him often because she thinks ladies' coats are interesting. I do not. I get bored there very quickly, but today I asked my father if I could go with him, and he said, sure. Once we were in the car, I told him what happened with Lois. I confess that I used horrible judgment, that I made a bad choice, and I was trying to fix it, but that I couldn't figure out what to do. Sometimes these things need a little time, he said. And then we got to his work. My dad works with his brother, my Uncle Bernie, who can always make me laugh. He pushes me around in the office chairs, tells me jokes, makes me hot chocolate at the office machine, and introduces me to the customers as his new boss. Even still, after a couple of hours, both Dad and Uncle Bernie were busy with customers, and I was as bored as ever. The secretary, Antoinette, let me play with the colored pencils, the magic markers, the rubber cement you can make little balls that bounce, the typewriter, and the adding machine. But then, when I started riding up and down the halls on the coat rack with wheels, Antoinette suggested I go in the back and watch TV. I was so tempted to pick up the phone and call Lois. She loves to try on the coats in this store, and she just makes everything fun. Maybe she would suddenly stop being mad, and her mother could drop her off. But it was lunchtime, and at my father's store, he always takes me to the cafeteria next door where I can get a sloppy joe and cherry pie. So I never did call Lois, and I figured Lois would not have come to the phone anyway. February 20th, 1945, Tuesday. We cut cards last night for the best guard shift. I cut an ace of clubs. Quite a few shells are coming in, close enough to make it worth ducking. I have been able to keep my distance from Salvati, the guy who hates me because I'm Jewish. He thinks I'm the cause of this war. As far as I'm concerned, people like him are the cause of this war. March 3rd, 1945, Saturday. Last night, I had the closest call of my life. Every night, 4 of us sleep at the gun, and last night, I slept at the gun together with Charles, Herb, and Better. We take turns staying awake. At 10 o'clock, a German plane came over. It was a light night, and he must have seen our gun because he strafed us and dropped anti-personnel bombs. I heard the shrapnel fly all around us. I hit the ground fast. When it was over, the raincoat I was wearing had 5 holes in it. 3 duds lay within 10 yards, and there was a hole 3 feet from my head where an AP had landed and exploded. An outfit nearby had 4 killed. March 4th, 1945, Sunday. We moved today and are now on the east side of the Erft Canal. Civilians can be seen on the road carrying their valuables in every type of vehicle imaginable. They had been living in dugouts on the side of the hill. March 13, 1945, Tuesday. We moved into a new position next to the Rhine in a village. There were 2 houses nearby, and after a little hesitation, we decided to take the cream-colored one. Last night, a shell hit the other one, destroying it. What a life. March 21st, 1945, Wednesday. Today at 7:55 on the first day of spring, we crossed the Rhine River on a pontoon bridge and set up 500 yards this side of the superhighway which runs south to Frankfurt. We are now in Germany. Chapter 36. Actual drums. My father just walked across Europe fighting a world war, and I am all freaked out over a little fight with Lois. I don't know if that's funny or sad. I have tried surrendering, and that doesn't work. Maybe I need to change my strategy. All week long, Lois was still not talking to me, and it's getting pretty weird, because we both talk around each other to Denise and Tracy. Sometimes at lunch I will notice Maureen looking over at me with sympathy in her eyes, and I really don't want her sympathy. It just makes me feel worse. And anyway, I am making a lot of new friends in the musical, even 8th graders. So what if Lois never talks to me again? It's Friday, and I am facing another weekend without Lois. And now I am starting to get pretty mad at her. But as I wrote earlier, please refer to the above paragraph. So what if Lois never speaks to me again? Maureen did not attempt to make plans with me again this weekend, which was a relief. And guess what? Drum roll. Tracy's brother just got a drum set, and she says I can come over and see it. Sunday, March 1st, 1970. Wow. Tracy's brother's drum set is so neato. I went over today, and for the very first time in my life, I sat behind a real drum set. Tracy's brother Brian showed me how to use my hands and feet together. I learned to play quarter notes on the hi-hat pedal, 1, 2, 3, 4, with my left foot. The bass drum is harder, but he taught me the pattern, 1 and 3, 4, 1 and 3, 4, on the bass pedal with my right foot. With my right hand, I played 8 notes on the hi-hat cymbal, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, while coming down on the snare with my left hand on the downbeat, 2, 4. I am now a real drummer. Sunday, Kurt and I got dropped off at the movies, and we saw In Search of the Castaways starring Haley Mills. It was a very exciting movie. I thought about Lois only once on Saturday and 3 times on Sunday. Maybe 4. Chapter 37. What Boys Want. Monday, March 2nd, 1970. Today during English class, Clayton Murray kept making me laugh by quoting lines from Bye Bye Birdie. He'd whisper, "Hello, Mrs. Garfine, is Charity home from school yet?" And I'd sing, "Going steady, going steady, going steady, steady for good." We can practically get through an entire song without Mr. Bruner noticing. By the time class was over, we were both ready to crack up laughing. Clayton walked with me partway down the hallway before he had to turn left for shop, so he probably noticed when Lois walked right by and ignored us. On the late bus home today, Lois kept her head pressed against the window and she wouldn't even look at me. At this point, I figured I really had nothing at all to lose. We're already not friends, so I decided to take a chance and sit next to her. Lois squeezed tighter against the window. I think she heard me sigh or something because she suddenly whipped around, looked right at me and said, "I hope you don't think that Clayton Murray actually likes you." "You told me he likes me." "Yeah, well, now I know the truth." "What truth?" "The truth about boys." "Boys?" "Boys want only one thing." "What's that?" "Sex." Yikes, allow me to mention to you, Journal, that I have never before interacted with that word on a page unless I was then expected to check one of the boxes labeled M or F. Back to the conversation. "Sex?" Lois nodded. "Okay, so here we have a classic case of good news and bad news. Lois spoke to me about sex. As I sat there stunned, she continued, "My grandmother told me everything, and it's not good." "What do you mean not good?" I asked. "My grandmother says that as soon as boys turn 12, all they ever think about is sex, and that is pretty much all they will think about until they turn 95. If they are speaking to you at all, it is only because they want sex. Therefore, the only men who are safe to talk to are the ones who are younger than 12 and older than 95, which pretty much rules out everyone." I sat there staring at Lois. I honestly and truly had nothing at all to say. The only word I could even think of was, "What?" Lois just stared at me, nodding. And then eventually I said, "Your grandmother told you all this?" "My grandmother has had 3 husbands, so believe me, she knows what she's talking about." Our bus pulled up to our stop and we got off silently and we started walking silently. Finally, Lois said, I'm still really angry at you. I'm just telling you this for your own good. We walked a little further, and then I said, thanks. We got to the corner where Lois turns towards her house. Goodbye, I said, but Lois was already walking in her direction, and she didn't look back. She just waved her hand slightly and kept going. My first thought was that she was just saying all that because she's still mad at me. But the more I walked, the more I thought, and by the time I got home, I was already thinking, what if it's true? I went into the house and Mom was singing, "Hey there, you with the stars in your eyes." But even though she was in a good mood, I ignored her completely and walked straight to my room and shut the door. So boys are always thinking about only sex? How can that be? They have invented most of the stuff in the world. No offense, girls, we will catch up. They run most of the countries, no offense, girls, etc. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I never thought about that. It's normal to think about it. Mrs. McCullough said so in Health. But I don't think about it all the time. And you know what else? I don't believe Lois is telling me the truth. I'm reading Dad's journal, and I've read all the way from February 11th, 1944 up to March 21st, 1945, and he has not once written a word about sex. Of course, that doesn't mean he wasn't thinking about it. What if it is all true? March 31st, 1945, Saturday. Our mission has been changed again, and we are now protecting Corps headquarters. We moved 60 miles to Marburg and have our guns set up on a street corner. Civilians passing by on the streets make it interesting compared to the many monotonous hours out in the middle of nowhere. We don't even have any shells to sweat out and are living in a nice modern house. I never saw so many officers as in this town. April 4th, 1945, Wednesday. Corps moved in. Nick and I have been manning together now for 3 days and nights. I'm so tired I don't get up to eat. April 6, 1945, Friday. I feel much better today since I caught up a little on my sleep. I got a letter from Mom today. I wish she didn't worry so much about me. Nick was on the gun today when 7 ME-109s came over. When he pulled back the bolt to throw a round in the chamber, 2 rounds went off accidentally and knocked a couple of bricks out of the colonel's house. However, there was so much noise that the colonel never realized what happened. The planes did not attack, but flew away. The burgomaster, mayor of this town, lives in the house next to where my machine gun is set up. He asked me to please keep a lookout for any civilians that might want to kill him. Apparently, the mayor of Aachen was killed by fanatic Nazis only a month or so ago. Chapter 38. Boys and Sex. I walked into the kitchen as soon as I heard my father coming down the hall. He had to know that something was really bothering me when he saw me come in. I just stood there fidgeting with my fingers as he said, "Hello." Before I lost my nerve, I decided to just start talking. "Dad?" "Yes, sweetie." I took a very big breath. After all, I was about to ask my father about sex. And how could that be easy for any girl? Dad, Lois told me that boys only talk to girls because they want, well, sex. And that after a boy turns 12, all he thinks about when he's with a girl is sex until he turns 95. I was breathing again, but I couldn't really look at my dad. I heard him pull out a kitchen chair, and I heard him ask me to sit, but I just stood there. Finally, I heard him say, "Now, where did Lois learn this? From her grandmother?" "Well," my father said, "I'm sure her grandmother was trying to protect her from—" He stopped to think for a moment. "From what?" I was anxious for the answer to this question, but it wasn't coming very quickly. "From—" He was having a difficult time finishing the sentence. My father rubbed his eyes and bunched up his lips. His face twisted a little into something that I would have to call a grimace. Gosh, I was thinking, how come it took him no time at all to tell me that my mother goes to a psychiatrist, but it's taking him forever to tell me about sex? My dad took a very slow breath and he started his sentence again. "Lanie, yes, it's true that boys think about sex. They do. That is true." It was difficult for him, but he looked right at me. "All the time?" He didn't pause at all now. He just said, "Often. Boys do think about sex often. But boys think about a lot of things just like girls do. And you know what? Thinking about sex does not make a person ready to have sex." "Okay, but when they're talking to a girl, are they listening to her or are they only thinking about sex?" My father chose every word very carefully. "Yes, of course they are listening to her. And sex may certainly cross a boy's mind when he's talking to a girl, but that does not mean he's expecting or even ready to have sex with that girl. Is this making any sense at all?" "It's pretty confusing." "All right, well, speaking from my own experience—" "Oh, Dad, no." Okay, how about this version?" He put his fingers up to make quotes. When a friend of mine was young, just like a lot of boys, I suppose, he was very interested in girls. He wanted to learn more about girls. He wanted to be near girls. If he liked a particular girl, he very much yearned to be near her, in her presence, in her company, just because of her. He did? He did. And it wasn't because he wanted or expected sex. He just wanted or longed to spend time with that girl. Oh. Now, I'm not saying that the thought of sex didn't cross his mind. It's okay if you don't say any more, Dad. All right. He stopped and nodded, a little embarrassed. I guess I really wanted to know what this one boy is thinking who talks to me. I put my head down so my father wouldn't see me blush. He's talking to you because he likes you, Lanie. Finally, I smiled. Thank you, Dad. I hugged him, and I walked back to my bedroom, completely drained and relieved all at once. Chapter 39. Painful Truth. Tuesday, March 3rd, 1970. I tried to say hello to Lois at the bus stop this morning, but it didn't work. Lois is back to ignoring me again. I really wanted to tell her what my father had said about boys, but you know what? If Lois really insists on being this way, then too bad for her. I can't even tell anymore if Lois is mad at me, or mad at her grandmother, or mad at boys, or mad at the whole world. Our Bye Bye Birdie show is just a little over a week away now, and Miss Gallistorfer keeps telling us kids that we are nowhere near ready, accompanied by a stomp, stomp, stomp of the foot. She says that people better get serious and learn their lines and cues and places, or there will be no show this year. According to Ricky Rosen and Sherry Margolis, who are 8th graders, she says this every year. I know all my lines. Come on, all I have to do is scream and swoon. I know my lines in several languages. Plus, I know all of the songs and dances, even the ones I'm not in. Clayton Murray knows all of his lines and songs and dances, and so do most of the kids, except for Peter Haskell and Gretchen Alder, who played Conrad Birdie and Kim McAfee. When it's Gretchen's turn to speak in the play, there is often an awkward pause, and then she'll make a stupid face and say, "Is that my line?" Sometimes Clayton will look back at me with a raised eyebrow, which always makes me giggle, and then Miss Gallistorfer will stomp her foot and yell, "People, people, people, we need to get serious." Today, I was a little anxious to get through rehearsal. It was the swim club's first meet, and I wanted to get over to the pool so I could root for Denise and Tracy. Maybe I would even root for Lois too if she would let me. From what Denise has told me, Lois is getting to be pretty fast at the crawl, and she has mastered the butterfly. But the rehearsal dragged on and on because of Gretchen and Peter, and finally when it ended, I picked up my things and started running for the door. That's when Clayton shouted, "Where are you going?" I stopped to answer him, "To the swim meet. Do you want to come?" Before he could reply, Gretchen Alder said in a very loud whisper to Martha Castle, "Why is Clayton always talking to that stupid Lanie Spurdle?" I really wanted to just turn and say, "Shut up," but that would have made me seem even more stupid, so I pretended I didn't hear her. I honestly don't know what Clayton heard. All I know is that Gretchen suddenly called, "Clayton!" and he turned to look. She said, "We're going to the plaza. Do you want to come?" He hesitated for a second, and then he gave me a sort of sad look and said, "I'll see you, Lanie," and he left to go with Gretchen and Martha. My face was just flaming red. I turned away from the horrible sight of the three of them leaving the auditorium together, and I saw Maureen on the stage painting scenery. My head was hanging very low when I heard her say, "He'll be back. He's not an idiot." I looked up at her. We were all alone in the auditorium. I said, "Do you think so?" Maureen just nodded and kept painting. My eyes were filling up with tears as I walked slowly down the hall, and I was choking back a sob by the time I sat down in the bleachers of the steamy swimming pool stadium. I felt like I might pass out, so I took several gulps of hot air and waved to Denise and Tracy. When Lois wouldn't even look at me, I couldn't take it any longer. I walked slowly from the swim meet out into the fresh, cold air. I burst into tears and I ran most of the way home. My eyes had dried by the time I walked into the house. The kitchen was warm, with soup on the stove and rolls in the oven. My mother was on the phone in the kitchen. She waved and said, "Hello." I'm pretty sure that was for the benefit of the person on the other end of the line, so I just kept walking into my bedroom and shut the door. April 12, 1945, Thursday. We moved 90 miles to Nordhausen, but on the way the track broke down 3 times. After a 3-hour delay, we got it started by making a gasket out of the tongue of my shoe. We went a few miles and the trailer fell apart. It took us an hour to get it fixed, but after we started out again, a low-hanging branch tore an ammo chest clean off. We got there at 6 p.m., a 10-hour trip. We set up our 2 tents in the city park and are manning the 50 and 40. April 13th, 1945, Friday. This city has a concentration camp, and there are about 3,000 dead in it. It was the most terrible sight I ever saw. Besides those in the cells, there were 1,000 lying on the ground outside in 4 columns. 90% had been starved until they could no longer walk. And then they were shot in the head just before we entered this city. They were mostly Poles, Greeks, Czechs, and Russians. They were nothing but purely skin and bone. There were even a few babies. A few were found alive, but their stomachs were so shrunken that they will not live. The civilians in this town are being made to carry them out, and they are using blankets, boards, etc. to do it. They all claim that they did not know what was going on in here. I don't believe any of them. Nordhausen is a name I will never forget. Chapter 40. Reality. Tuesday, March 3rd continued. My father was a witness to the Holocaust. He describes it all in his journal. Beside the passage, he taped pictures he took with his own camera. On the edge of each picture, he wrote the date and the words, "In case no one believes me." The tears are back, and this time I can't stop them. I keep reading this part of my dad's journal over and over again. I don't know why. Maybe I think it will change or something. They'll find someone alive. They'll save one of the babies. Maybe if I read it enough times, I will wear out the words, and they will disappear from the page like they never happened. I keep staring at the photographs, rows and rows of bodies that were lives, bodies carried out in solemn columns. There is a close-up of one man, skin, bones, and rags on a stretcher. He's just hollow. He was a person. Who was he? How did he suffer? Why? Lanie! Lanie! Annie is yelling, and now she just shoved open the door to my room with her foot slamming it against the wall. I didn't even have a second to hide Dad's journal. What the heck is wrong with her? I said dinner. Are you deaf or something? Okay, I heard you. I can't let her know I've been crying. Later. It's Tuesday night and Dad is home for dinner, so we ate in the dining room. If anybody noticed my wet eyes, they didn't say anything. I wiped my nose and took a seat at the table. Lanie, my mother snapped. I said, bring in the string beans. I hadn't even heard her say that. I went into the kitchen for the string beans and put them on the dining room table. Lanie, use a hot plate, my mother scolded. I took a hot plate from the credenza, placed it on the table, put the string beans on the hot plate, and took my place at the table. As the food was passed and people ate, I sneaked quick looks at my father. He was just a man, sitting with his family at a table, eating beans and brisket. But I knew now what he had seen. He had seen the Holocaust with his own eyes. Once you've seen that, how do you keep going? How do I keep going? When you truly know what people are capable of doing to each other, how do you ever keep going? When my whole family is at the table together, my parents sit at either end and they talk past us kids to each other about my mother's root canal or my father's customers or the repair work we need done in the utility room, almost as if we're not there. That's why I jumped when my mother said, "So how's the play coming, Lanie?" I said, "How is the play coming?" "It's fine," I said. "We'll all be there," my father said. "We wouldn't miss it." "Yes, we're looking forward to it," my mother said. I thought my head was going to explode. This, of all nights, was not the night I needed my mother to start talking to me. Now I know why my father didn't want me reading the journal. And I had to go ahead and read it anyway. And now I can't believe what I have read and what I have seen, and I can't get the thought of it out of my head. I will never be able to, ever. I mean, I knew about Anne Frank, and I knew about the Holocaust and the death camps, but I didn't really know what I have now seen through the eyes of my father. It's the cruelty that is breaking my heart. I don't think there is anything worse than what people can do to people. Tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes are terrible and they kill, but that's nature doing that to people. Nature doesn't mean it. People mean it, and they do things on purpose that are worse than anything nature can do by accident. People wake up in the morning in their job, their activity, their goal for that day is to torture and destroy and murder other people? How can this be? How do I keep going? Chapter 41. Cruelty. Tuesday, March 3rd, continued. I was sitting on the couch in the den waiting for my father when he came in. "Can't sleep?" he asked. I shook my head no, and I felt myself begin to shiver.
He needed only one look at me. Is something on your mind? Yes. Okay. He sat in the chair across from the couch so that he could look into my face. He knew this was serious. Dad? Yes. Why are people cruel on purpose? My father swallowed hard and sat forward in his chair. Well, that's a difficult question. There are lots of reasons. Has someone been cruel to you? No, I mean, yes, but I'm talking more about people who are really, really cruel to people they don't even know. People killing people for no good reason and just... I was trying so hard not to cry and squeezing my knees up against my chest so that Dad couldn't tell that I was shaking. He looked at me but didn't talk. I desperately wanted to say more, but I couldn't tell my father why I was so upset because I wasn't supposed to be reading the journal. So I stopped talking and just waited and hoped that he would say something soon. I didn't think I could keep myself from crying very much longer. My father stood up and paced for a couple of moments. Then he sat down again. I'm going to be honest, sweetie. This is very hard to explain, but I will try to make a little sense out of it for you, if I can. I couldn't look at him, but he kept talking. If someone is unhappy and he believes that others are to blame, even if he doesn't know them, or maybe especially if he doesn't know them, he can be inclined to be very cruel to those people in order to protect himself. Do you see? Who would be unhappy enough to blame people they don't even know? I asked. A lot of people are that unhappy, and I'm afraid many of them are misinformed as to why they're unhappy, so they take it out on innocent people. I didn't think before I blurted out the next question. What if it happens here? My father took a breath and paused for a few moments. We live in a wonderful country, Lanie. There are good systems in place here, good, strong laws that are designed to protect all of us. Suddenly he stopped. He was thinking very hard. But what? But what each of us must remember is our own level of responsibility. Okay, but I don't understand. We all have so much power in ourselves to impact others in a good way. Being kind and being helpful? Yes, but it needs to go beyond that. I'm not sure what you mean. This is what I mean. He turned and looked right at me. An atrocity happens not just because of a bully. It happens because nobody stops that bully. I was looking directly into my father's eyes and they were blazing. It's not enough just to be kind. We need to be protective. How? I asked. He smiled. Keep your eyes open. Listen with your heart. And you will know how. We were both really quiet then. I still don't understand what he means, but I just might be ready again to trust human nature. April 14th, 1945, Saturday. The guys in this outfit don't have any words for what we're seeing here in Nordhausen. Yesterday, I saw Salvati crying. I just stood there and he saw me and he said, I'm sorry. I don't know if he meant he's sorry for the fight he started or for the concentration camp or for both. Anyway, I guess I'll take it. April 18th, 1945, Wednesday. We had a memorial service for Roosevelt. The people in this city are scared stiff. They must think everyone is as cruel as they are. Although I have never met any Germans who admit they wanted Hitler and war, they all claim they had to fall in with the government. April 19th, 1945, Thursday. We are now at a PW cage. It is 3 miles out of town, and we are guarding them. Chapter 42. People change. Tuesday, March 3rd, continued. Wow. Salvati apologized to Dad. I will try to always remember how people can change. You just never know. Now I need to find out what is kept in a PW cage. On the bus today, Lois wouldn't let Kenny Grubner sit next to her. When he asked why, Lois just glared at him and slid over to take up the entire seat. Before I could think about it, I blurted out, because I'm sitting there. Then I sat next to Lois, knowing full well why she didn't want Kenny or any other boy sitting beside her. Lois didn't say anything, and neither did I, for a while anyway. Then as we turned into the middle driveway, I leaned over and whispered, I think it's perfectly normal for a girl to have a crush on her teacher. It's not stupid. I was wrong. Lois just sat there. I took a deep breath, and also, I found out that even if boys do think about sex a lot, it doesn't mean they expect you to have sex with them until you're married or at least old. Lois sat very still, looking out the window for a moment longer, and then she turned to me. How do you know? My dad says that guys talk to girls for lots of reasons, and he should know he is a guy, and your grandmother isn't. Then how come she told me what she did? Well, I think she said it because she doesn't want you to get hurt or pregnant. Why would I? Oh. Sex makes people pregnant, but thinking about sex doesn't. Lois took a long, slow breath and let it out. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for letting me, I said. Wednesday, March 5th, 1970. Rehearsals are getting pretty intense. Lois and I are best friends again, which is a huge relief because the musical is on Friday night, and I really want her to come and watch me faint when I hear Conrad Birdie singing. It's funny, too, because Conrad Birdie is played by Peter Haskell, and there is no way I would actually faint over him, which is why I think I'm very good at acting. I asked Mr. Bruner what a PW cage is, and he says it's where they put captured prisoners from the other side during a war. So I guess Dad was guarding a cage full of Nazis. April 24th, 1945. We're still on duty at the PW cage. This camp sets along the bottom of a cliff and stretches out as far as the eye can see. The prisoners sleep on the ground. Chioka and I have charge over Pen 4, which contains over 7,000 prisoners, of which 1,000 are Hungarians and Russians in German uniforms. We must see that the sick see a doctor, see that they are fed, and keep order. There are 6 Belgians and a half-track guarding our pen. The job is driving me crazy. There are over 800 wounded, and we can only take 50 each day to the hospital tent because it is already overcrowded. They treat Chioka and me like gods when we walk in. I don't want to feel bad for them, but it's hard not to. Today I wound up talking to one Jewish boy in my pen. He said he is 21, and he had been in the Russian army, taken prisoner, and made to fight in the German army. I took him over to the house we live in and gave him some food to eat. I filled his pockets with 4 cans of meat and some candy I got from Mom. I would have liked to help him more, but I am only a private in this army and I have nothing to say in the matter. I finally had to take him back to the pen. I just hope he gets home. Chapter 43, Bad Rehearsal. Thursday, March 5th, 1970. The dress rehearsal today for Bye Bye Birdie was pretty chaotic. The kids were too overexcited to get anything right. For one thing, everyone was laughing at everyone else's costumes and makeup. My hair was sprayed white and gray. I was wearing an old lady wig, an old lady dress, old lady stockings and shoes, and old lady glasses. Clayton, however, looked gorgeous. He's playing a teenager, so he gets to wear a white t-shirt, a Letterman sweater, jeans, and sneakers. Adorable. I had to try very hard not to look at him, but I have a head start. I've been ignoring him since he ran off to the plaza with Gretchen Alder. I'm not being rude to him or anything. I am not going out of my way to avoid him. I am just not going out of my way to look at him or talk to him either. Sometimes it will happen by accident. Once our eyes met and he almost smiled, but I'm not really sure because I looked away pretty quickly. And anyway, there are a lot of other things for me to think about right now. I am very focused on practicing my screaming and fainting and swooning. My goal right now is to be the very best mayor's wife ever in any production of Bye Bye Birdie anywhere. During dress rehearsal especially, there was a lot to distract me from looking at or talking to Clayton Murray. Kids kept goofing off and missing their lines and cues. Everyone would laugh when someone got something wrong, which would make Miss Gallistorfer stomp her foot and holler, "People, people, people," which only made us kids giggle harder. The dress rehearsal was somewhat of a disaster, and when it finally ended, everyone was exhausted, especially Miss Gallistorfer, whose foot must have been pretty sore from all the stomping. She told us all to sit in the audience while she stood on stage in front of us. I took my seat and was adjusting my old lady dress before I noticed that Clayton Murray was sitting right next to me. "Hi," he said. "Hi," I said back. Like I said, there's no reason to be rude. Then Miss Gallistorfer started talking. "Okay, people, as you know, that was a very poor dress rehearsal. You're not concentrating. You're not applying yourselves. I cannot and will not have the people backstage talking or giggling during the show. Is that clear?" We kids mumbled a collective yes. "But," Miss Gallistorfer continued, "as they say in the theater, a bad dress rehearsal means a great show." With that, she crossed her fingers and threw her arms over her head and shouted, "So let's go have a great show." All the kids clapped and cheered. As we got up to leave, Clayton tapped me on the shoulder. "What?" I said. I turned around to look at him, remembering while my face turned red beneath the old lady glasses that I was not exactly wearing my most flattering outfit. Are you going to the cast party at Billy Hutchings'?" he asked. "I don't know," I said awkwardly as I adjusted my sagging old lady dress. "Oh, well, I was just wondering," Clayton said.
I'll have to see, I replied. Then I turned and walked away. I was much too angry at Clayton and embarrassed about the way I looked to get into a conversation with him about parties. April 29th, 1945, Sunday. We got a new mission again today. We are now running an Allied PWX camp near Grimma, 17 miles from Leipzig. This used to be a German cavalry school. 1 mile from here, there are 200 Jewish women, and they are half-starved. They were in a concentration camp called Auschwitz, and they were being marched from town to town by their Nazi captors until our troops moved in and the Nazis fled. Our captain asked me to talk to them since I am the only Jew in this company who can speak to them in Yiddish. Their stories are unbelievable. May 5th, 1945, Saturday. News of the war sounds good. I found a motorcycle and I can ride into Grimma to talk with the Jewish women. They are all wondering what will become of them, and nobody seems to know. Many of them have given me the addresses they had memorized of family they have in other countries. These women are not allowed to write, so I have written over 70 letters for them to places like South America, Canada, Palestine, and many in the U.S. May 6, 1945, Sunday. I have been going swimming in the Muldy River. I went to Leipzig to see a movie last night. May 5th, 1945, Tuesday. Well, the war is over. It was a long road, but here we are, safe and sound, thank God. Chapter 44, The Letters of Thanks. Thursday, March 5th, 1970, continued. My dad lived through this horrible war. I am so very grateful for that. A lot of people were not so fortunate, and for some people, survival could only be described as a miracle. When I turned the last page of the journal, several letters slipped from a flap in the back. This is what they say. July 21st, 1945. Dear Mr. Spurdle, with immense joy, I acknowledge the receipt of your letter at May 12th. Since 7 long years was this the first joyful news I got from Europe. I cannot express sufficiently my great joy that my dear wife, Eva, is alive. Accept, dear Mr. Spurdle, my cordialest thanks for your amiability to me, and I should be very glad if I could demonstrate you my gratitude. Yours eternally thankful, Octavio B. Rice, La Paz, Bolivia. Dear Private Spurdle, your letter of May 12th regarding Bertha Eltes was handed to me as I am her father. You can imagine how happy I was to receive the news about my daughter. My sincerest thanks to you for sending us the wonderful news of my daughter. Respectfully yours, Mr. Israel Eltes, Montreal, Canada. June 24th. Dear Private Spurdle, we received your letter concerning our niece, Dora Barak, and want to sincerely thank you for establishing contact with her. We have been eagerly awaiting news of our family in Europe, and this is the first we have heard. Please tell her that we hope she is well, and we will do all that is possible to help her in every way we can. Again, please accept our very sincere thanks for your help in notifying us, and tell Dora that her family here wants to help her in every way possible. Sincerely yours, Mr. and Mrs. Simon Saltman, Holyoke, Massachusetts. Dear Mr. Spurdle, I have just now received the letter you wrote to my uncle, Mr. Hanak Heilman, about my sister, Rosa. That's the first time after 5 years that we hear about her, and you can't imagine yourself the way I feel about it. My uncle and me thank you very much and invite you to visit us and stay with us for your next leave. I would like to send my sister some money if you can perhaps help me get it to her. Can you please send more particulars about her because it seems they are not allowed to write. I thank you once more and await some more news. Yours faithfully, Joshua Heilman. Dear Marvin, I learned about the letter you wrote to my uncle concerning my cousin, Margit Ikovics, in Germany. I want to thank you for being so wonderful to help her out. I really can't tell you how much it meant to us to get the first news at last from one member of our family left in Europe. I also left my parents, 3 sisters, and a brother in Europe just before the war broke out. I hope and pray that they are alive and I'll get word of them soon. If you see my cousin again, would you please tell her that my sister Siri and I were very happy to hear about her and we will do everything possible to help her as soon as we can. I hope, Marvin, that everything is okay with you and you'll be able to return very soon to the good old USA. We are certainly proud of you boys for the swell job you have done over there. Sincerely, Elsa Itzkovitz, Los Angeles, California. Chapter 45. Pride. I was already in tears halfway through the first letter, so you can just imagine what a mess I was when I finished all of them. Most of my tears were from happiness. There was good news for some people at the end of this horrible war. I felt so proud of my father, not only because he had done something heroic, but because he had done it so quietly. A person really had to know him to know that he had done it at all. Chapter 46, Long Day. Friday, March 6, 1970. Friday was show day for the cast of Bye Bye Birdie, and for me, it felt like the school part of the day would take forever. I was too full of anxiousness and excitement to concentrate during my classes. I would tap my pencil and look at the clock and shake my knee up and down until Keith Kessler told me during science to cut it out. Each class crept by until finally I got to gym, my last period. Mrs. Mason split us up for volleyball. Lucky me, I wound up on a team with Gretchen Alder. Well, okay, I figured, if I could ignore Clayton Murray, I could certainly ignore Gretchen Alder, right? Wrong. Gretchen is that volleyball nightmare player who stands perfectly still as the ball comes toward her, and then, just as it bounces on the floor next to her, turns and says, "Yours." Finally, I was so fed up, I said, "You could at least think about trying." Gretchen's eyes blazed with rage. "Shut up, you twit," she said. "I'll talk when I feel like it," I said. Gretchen scowled at me and walked right up to my face and said, "You're so stupid you actually think Clayton Murray likes you." "How do you know what I think?" "I know what Clayton Murray thinks. He told me exactly what he thinks, and he thinks that you are a dopey queer phoebe." I felt that awful rolling stomach feeling like right after you've been punched. I fought to ignore it and tried to think of the perfect response, but right then, my brain was mud. Luckily, Mrs. Mason blew her whistle and yelled, "Side out and rotate!" We all chanted, "Our team is really great." I went through the motions of playing volleyball, but all I could hear in my head was Clayton's voice calling me dopey, and then my own voice asking me why I should care, which is a stupid question. Obviously, I do care, and that's the whole problem, isn't it? You can't just stop liking someone because you're supposed to. Chapter 47, Showtime. Friday, March 6, 1970. It was almost showtime, and a lot of kids could not resist peeking out through the curtains to watch the audience arrive. When Miss Gallistorfer caught them doing it, she would stomp her foot and say, "That is very unprofessional," which I found kind of funny because this is a middle school play. We are just about as unprofessional as things get. I must confess, though, that I couldn't resist the curtain either. After I got into my costume and had my hair sprayed gray and my old lady makeup applied, I peeked out the curtain at the side of the stage so that I could stare longer. Near the front and off to the right, I saw my father looking proud and slightly uncomfortable in the cramped middle school auditorium chair. I saw my mother thumbing through the program. I saw my sister Annie looking completely bored and much too busy and important to be there. I saw Kurt bouncing up and down in his seat until Mom turned and spoke to him. A few moments later, he was bouncing again. I will try to describe the feeling that enveloped me when the curtain came up and the play began. It was like every portion of my being was melded together and completely focused on only the moment. And each moment was very real and clear and brilliant. And all these moments combined to form one big, powerful, and thrilling energy which swept me up and pulled me through the entire experience. When it came time for the town square fainting scene, I felt the most bright and shiny I had ever felt in my life. I threw myself into it, body and soul. In my big scene, the mayor is presenting teen idol Conrad Birdie with the key to the city of Sweet Apple, Ohio. I, the mayor's wife, am standing dutifully by his side, very polite and proper. But the moment Conrad Birdie strums his guitar and sings the words, "You gotta be sincere," I am transfixed by his irresistible charm. There was no holding me back. I mean, I really went for it. I screamed and swooned and lost control of my limbs. My eyes rolled back and I fainted into the mayor's arms so that my dress fell over my face, which was all just fine because I was wearing big old lady underwear and big old lady stockings. That's when I heard it. Starting like a small wave, it came rolling toward me. Laughter. The waves became larger and larger and louder and louder. Was it for me? There was a lot going on in the scene. Conrad Birdie was dancing around, shaking his hips, and the whole town was getting into the music, but I was the only one up there with a dress over my head. That laughter was for me, and every time I screamed, swooned, and fainted, the audience roared and roared. Before I knew what was happening, the scene was over, and I joyously flew through the rest of the play, peering from backstage at the scenes I wasn't in. As I was watching, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around. It was Clayton Murray. "You were really funny," he said. "Thanks," I whispered, pushing the old lady glasses higher up my nose. "We're not supposed to talk backstage," I said, and I turned away from Clayton and back to the play. I could feel Clayton standing there for a moment. and then I could feel him walk away. Maureen, stationed nearby pulling the ropes to raise the curtain, looked at me. "Told ya," she said. And the next thing I can remember is that the final notes of the final song rang out and it was over. The cast took what seemed like 7 or 8 curtain calls. We were so excited, everyone was hugging everyone else, but I didn't let myself get close enough to Clayton Murray to hug him. Miss Gallistorfer was beaming and crying. She raised her arms over her head and announced, "I love each and every one of you kids." Peter Haskell handed Miss Gallistorfer flowers during the last curtain call and she pretended to swoon. Everyone laughed, and the next thing we all knew, the final curtain came down. "Party at my house," Billy Hutchings shouted. He played Albert. He's a nice kid and he lives near the school. In the excitement of the moment, I decided right then to go to the party, and I hurried out front to find my family. I looked first at my father. His face was filled with something even more than pride. It was filled with awe. I hugged him hard. "You were amazing," he said. "The funniest one in the play by a million miles. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Dad." I looked over at my mother, who was smiling a sort of patient smile that says, "When do I get my hug?" I hugged her. "We're all very proud," she said. "You were wonderful." "Thanks, Mom." Annie stood there with her arms folded. "Good job," she said. Kurt was bouncing up and down, chanting, "Lanie was the best one! Lanie was the best one!" Then Lois ran up and grabbed me in a big hug. "You were so good," she shouted. "Oh my gosh, were you ever good?" I felt overwhelmed by all the attention. I almost couldn't wait to get away and go to Billy's party. So I gave Lois another hug and told my family I had to go and I would see them at home. I smiled at my father as my family turned to go. He was proud of me. Well. Chapter 48. The Party. Friday, March 6th continued. The party was in Billy Hutchings' basement. He lived right behind the school and we all walked there. The music was loud and the kids were crammed in so tightly we couldn't move. All the spaces on the couch were taken, so I just stood there awkwardly holding an orange crush. Finally, I found a few kids to stand with, but it was hard to talk over all the music. Someone would scream something and then someone else would yell, "What?" Just as I was about to conclude that I really hate teenage parties, Clayton Murray came over and asked me to dance. Anyway, I think that's what he said, but I wasn't quite sure, so I shouted, "What?" "Do you want to dance?" he shouted back. I thought for a moment if I had yelled, "No," everyone might have heard it, especially if he had to shout, "What?" and I had to yell it again. So the next thing I knew, I was dancing with Clayton Murray to "Build Me Up Buttercup" by the Foundations. It's not a slow song, but it may as well have been. There wasn't enough room to dance very far apart in that basement, so everyone there was pretty close together, and I must admit it, I did not mind being that close to Clayton Murray. The song ended and Clayton and I were just standing there smiling very nervously at each other. Right then, Gretchen Alder walked up and asked Clayton to dance. She was staring at him hard. He looked back at her, paused for a moment and said, "No, thank you. I'm dancing with Lanie." Wow, I know. We danced to "Get Together" by the Youngbloods, "Grazing in the Grass" by the Friends of Distinction, and "Crystal Blue Persuasion" by Tommy James and the Shondells, which is a slow song. Don't ask me how I figured out what to do, but I did. The next part is very emotional and I need to go to sleep. I will be right back here with the whole story in the morning, dear journal. Saturday, March 7th, 1970. It's Saturday and my brain is still very busy soaking up all of what happened last night, or in the words of Tommy Rowe, whose song I recently danced to with Clayton Murray, "I'm so dizzy my head is spinning." Okay, so where did we leave off? Oh yes, I was dancing with Clayton Murray. Close eyes, think calm thoughts. I was dancing with Clayton Murray and we were having a blast. All of my concerns about any names he may have allegedly called me faded away. I knew he had never said those things from the way he was treating me. The more we danced, the more fun we had, and the angrier Gretchen seemed to get. Gretchen was talking very loudly to her worker bees and dancing with Peter Haskell, who was doing all of his now classic Conrad Birdie moves. She would try to maneuver her way closer and closer to Clayton to get his attention, but nothing was working. He was pretty focused on this gorgeous little mayor's wife right here. We broke to get some punch, and I saw Maureen come down the stairs to join the party. Being on the stage crew, she had to stay behind and clean up. Remember I told you that we were pretty crammed for space and you already know that Maureen is sort of big? Well, while Clayton and I were at the punch bowl, Gretchen was working her way over toward him until the only thing standing between Gretchen and Clayton was Maureen. I could see Gretchen's little face poking up from behind Maureen, trying to get his attention over the music. Maureen was standing very awkwardly and innocently, completely oblivious to Gretchen's intentions. Then Gretchen started barking, excuse me, in a very rude tone, but Maureen did not appear to hear it. All of a sudden, Gretchen yelled, "Move it, lard ass!" And with both hands, she shoved Maureen out of her way. Maureen was knocked onto the dance floor, and from there, she bounced off some kids and then bounced back into the punch bowl, sloshing a giant wave of punch all over Gretchen's blouse. Attempting to regain her balance, Maureen took 2 wobbly steps, but then toppled over backward onto the snack table, and everything went flying everywhere. Chips, dips, crackers, peanuts, pizza, and M&Ms. Maureen waved her arms around like propeller blades, trying hard to stay upright. She managed to keep from falling over, but she knocked Cindy and Martha down, and then Gretchen ducked under Maureen's whirling arms, but she slipped on a big wad of chip dip. Thus, the 3 Bs came a-tumbling down. Maureen had barely regained her balance when Gretchen kicked a leg out and tripped her. So down went Maureen and up bounced Gretchen, jumping on top of Maureen, smacking her and yelling, "You fat, disgusting, clumsy waste of human flesh!" She probably said more than that, but I didn't hear it. I reached down and pulled Gretchen off Maureen, and I grabbed Gretchen's fists, holding them firmly. "You stop right now," I ordered. I was nose to nose with Gretchen, and the spray-it from her say-it smacked right into my face. "This is none of your business, sir," she barked. "Yes, it is," I yelled back at her. "It's everyone's business." My words rang clearly into the sudden silence. Billy's mother had picked the needle up off the record. The entire party heard me. Gretchen's face was still twisted and red and hurtful, but I would not let go of her hands. Clayton looked directly at Gretchen. "You need to stop being so mean, Gretchen," he said. "It's ugly." "Did you just call me ugly?" she screeched, flailing around to get her hands free. By this time, Billy's parents were there to help. I looked at Maureen. She was just sitting in a crumpled ball on the floor. Clayton leaned down and asked if she was okay. Billy brought her a napkin so she could wipe the cheese spread off her chin. Peter Haskell reached his hand down to help her up. Ricky Rosen picked up the punch bowl and walked up to Gretchen. "How about a nice Hawaiian punch?" he asked, and he dumped the rest of the bright red beverage over her head. That may have been taking things a bit too far, but she did ruin our party. As for Maureen, she got right back up and looked at Gretchen. "I would have moved if you had asked me nicely," she said. "That Maureen is sure something." Pretty soon, more parents intervened, and we were all driven home. So, what's going to happen next between Maureen and me, between Clayton and me? I don't know, but what I do know is that I am growing up. Now all I need to do is figure out a way to return Dad's journal. Chapter 49, The Return. Saturday, March 7th, 1970. It's Saturday. I came out of my room this morning and I assessed the situation in the house. Dad had gone to work. Annie was in her room on the phone. Kurt was in the den watching cartoons, and Mom was still asleep. I poured myself a bowl of Life cereal and went into the den to sit with Kurt. He loves it when I watch cartoons with him on Saturday mornings, and today he was looking at me with a special admiration. He got such a kick out of seeing me in the play last night. We were laughing at the Roadrunner when we heard Mom come out of her room and head toward us in the den. She stood in the doorway and told Kurt and me that she was going to run some errands. Kurt pointed to the TV. "Look, Mom, this is where the Roadrunner doesn't fall until he notices that he's in midair. Remember how I told you about it?" Our mother came into the room and looked at the television, and she laughed along with Kurt. It was an actual laugh. I looked at Kurt. Kurt looked at me. We both looked at our mother, who looked at us and said, "Is there anything you need while I'm out?" "Going with the mood of the day," Kurt said. "Candy?" "Besides candy," our mother said. "The new issue of Tiger Beat?" I asked. "Okay, I'll be back in a bit," our mother said. Kurt and I looked at each other again. She was actually in a good mood. As soon as I heard my mother's car pull out of the driveway, I got up. Kurt said, "Aw," which he always says when I leave him. "I'll be right back," I said. "Okay." I went down the hall, into my bedroom, into the shoebox, and I pulled out my father's journal. I held it for a few moments because I wanted to remember how it felt. Then quietly, I slipped past Annie's room into my parents' room. I opened the door to the closet, stepped in, and neatly tucked the journal safely back into the exact spot where I had found it. From where I was in my parents' room on the other side of the house, I never heard my mother's car pull back into the driveway. And when I noticed the faint sound of footsteps, I thought they were Annie's or Kurt's. With my head deep inside the closet, my heart nearly burst out of my chest when I heard my mother's voice. "Were you looking for these?" Slowly, I pulled myself out of the closet and turned to see my mother standing there, holding my drumsticks. I gasped and started to say, I'm sorry. But my mother stopped me. "No, I'm sorry. I should not have taken them. They belong to you." Here." She handed me the drumsticks. I reached for them and said, "Thank you." "I've been meaning to give these back to you for some time," she said. "I was just embarrassed." Embarrassed, I thought. My mother? I had absolutely no idea what to say. I'm sorry, my mother said. "It's okay," I said, even though it wasn't. But what else was I supposed to say to a mother who was apologizing to me for the very first time in my entire life? "So," my mother said slowly, taking a seat on the bed, "what do you have planned for today?" "I don't know," I said very awkwardly. I might call Lois." "Oh, okay," she said. The whole time I was just standing there. "Lois seemed to really enjoy the play last night," my mother said. "She was laughing so hard at your bit. I bet you could hear her, couldn't you?" "Mm-hmm." "Oh, I meant to ask you, what happened at the party? Your father said a fight broke out?" "Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But you weren't hurt." "No." "And you didn't hurt anyone?" she asked with a little laugh. "No, Mom," I smiled. "Nobody got hurt. We just got messy." "Really? Well, I do want to hear more about this when I get back, okay?" I had no idea what I was supposed to say next. This was not the mother I was used to. This was like an entirely new person, and frankly, I'm pretty shy around new people. "Anyway," my mother said brightly, "I came back because I forgot my prescription, and I'm glad I did. It gave us a chance to talk." My mother got up, took her prescription note from her desk, and walked to the door. She stood there and smiled at me. "I'll be back with that Tiger Beat magazine," she said. "Thanks, Mom," I said as I watched her walk down the hall. I stayed there in my parents' room, tightly holding my drumsticks for several minutes. Then I walked into my room, put the drumsticks next to my shoebox, and went back into the den to watch cartoons with Kurt. Chapter 50. The Confession. Later in the day. Tonight, when my father came out of his room, I went into the kitchen to join him. He smiled when he saw me, and he told me again how much he enjoyed watching me in the play. "You were the best one, sweetie." "You're just saying that because you're my father." "No, I really mean it. You were the best one." "Yeah, I was, huh?" I laughed. "You were." "Thanks, Dad." "You want to watch a movie with me?" he asked as he walked into the den. "Jimmy Stewart?" "Sure," I said, following him. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Mom gave me back my drumsticks." "I know," he said. Then he sat down on the couch and patted the cushion next to him. But I stood for a few more moments. "She's been meaning to do that for quite some time," he said. "What do you think took her so long?" "Oh, parental pride, stubbornness, whatever it is that keeps us from doing the right thing. How come sometimes the one voice that's telling us the right thing to do is the quietest voice? I don't know." Dad thought about that. "But it's always there. You just have to listen." I nodded and sat next to my father. "Dad?" "Yes?" "I want to try harder to get to know Mom." "Oh, that would mean so much to her. She seems like she could be an interesting person." My father just laughed and laughed. "Oh, she is that. And Dad, there's another thing I need to tell you." "Yes?" Right here, I almost lost my nerve, and then I just blurted it out. "Dad, I read your journal." My father looked at me with a soft expression. "I know," he said. My eyes got very wide. "You know?" I asked. "How?" "Well," said my father, "when a person really knows another person, he just gets a feeling about things." "Wow," I said, "and you're not mad?" "No, I'm very impressed, actually, and very touched." I smiled a smile of great relief, and then I turned and looked directly at my father and I said, "I think it's the most amazing thing I've ever read. Better than Huckleberry Finn." "You're just saying that because you're my daughter," he laughed. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Will you tell me more about what happened to the Jewish women you rescued after the war?" "Sure," my father said. And we talked that night, as we had talked on many nights before, and as we will talk on many nights to come. The end.